upstate.
Station, Texas, you're watching the SEC on ESPN. A&M is now 2 wins away from a guaranteed spot in its first ever SEC title game. Meanwhile, look at that. A&M basically has to win, or the odds say they will not make it to the SEC title game, and they still have to go to Austin on Black Friday on ABC to face Texas.
Well, the odds of A&M winning the game drastically decreased leading into the halftime break. But if you love watching the probability to win meter, I'm sure that meter was all over the place on Saturday as the Gamecocks did the unthinkable. And no, not what we were thinking on Friday, Diesel. They did the worst unthinkable known to mankind. Welcome into Wire to Wire. He's Diesel. I'm Cole Bryson. I don't know if we will even get to another topic today in this 4-hour show, Diesel. The South Carolina Gamecocks, you and I talked about it on Friday as to if they could keep this thing close. We even compared them to Clemson. You asked the question to lead the show on Friday, and boy, oh boy, I don't think anyone saw this coming.
I don't think I've ever seen a program Amber Heard the bed so hard. Come on. Like they climbed up on top of it. They squatted. They took the pants down and just went all over the second half. Dear God, 28 unanswered points. You couldn't muster a field goal in the second half when destiny was on the line. That's all you needed was a field goal.
Yep.
Come on.
One score, Diesel, would have changed the outcome, right? You know, we look back. We look back, Diesel, at the 2024 loss to LSU. And you remember it. I remember it a season ago, Diesel. You and I talked about it a year ago. What was it, a 17-point loss or a 17-point lead Gamecocks blew a year ago? Remember, the game was at Williams-Brice. They were up 17-0. They blew the lead. LSU came back, and we thought, how do you blow a 17-point lead? Here's the reality of it. Teams in college football, they blow 17-point leads. It happens. Yeah. Maybe not a lot, but that's a forgivable sin. What happened on Saturday is not forgivable. What happened on Saturday?
Unforgivable.
Diesel, I don't know that I've ever seen anything like it, and we'll get to Shane Beamer a little bit later in the show, in the 4 o'clock segment, and again in the 5 o'clock segment, because there's a ton to unpack, a lot of rumors, a lot of nasty from Saturday's conclusion of that game. But, Diesel, I just don't know how that happens. To your point, you score one time.
Yeah.
You score one time in the second half, and you probably win the game, and you're thinking, oh, man, we almost gave that up. We almost blew that. But no, you couldn't hold on to it. That might be the worst loss I have ever seen South Carolina take as long as I've been a fan of college football.
Well, when you consider the fact that Texas A&M might have played the worst possible half of football they could have in the first half, couple that with the fact that South Carolina played the best possible half of football they could possibly play in the first half, and then the script completely flipped. I've never seen a game get so lopsided like that, where one team can do no right in the first half and they could do no wrong in the second half, and vice versa. It's truly, I mean, I expected A&M to be able to do that the second half, their second half play. That's how we expected them to play the whole game. The first half, I know I talked about this last week, that sometimes teams just have those, you can't figure out why they're playing as awful as they are kind of games. And A&M had that first half, but they figured out a way to recover at halftime, and they did everything they had to do to win that football game, and South Carolina did nothing to finish.
To your point about the halves, and by the way, Tolos, want to hear from you at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-326-3663. The chat on the stream where 54 Tolos are already watching the show on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. It's blowing up, as you can imagine. The Hub City Spartanburgers text line has just started to get going. Again, 844-326-3663. Phone lines are open as well on this Overreaction Monday. Want to hear from you, Gamecock fans. Diesel, going back to your point about the halves, it's almost like, and we joke about it, but it's almost like it was two different games, because South Carolina scored 17 in the first quarter, 13 in the second quarter. A&M scored 3 points in the first quarter, 0 in the second. So at halftime, you're talking about this 30-3 lead that South Carolina had, right? And then we've seen this happen in sports before, but a halftime lead just disintegrates. This didn't disintegrate. This looked like, to your point a minute ago, this looked like a different game played. And I know halftime sometimes can be a really good thing for some teams. It can be a really bad thing for some teams as well. But it was almost like the good South Carolina went in the locker room, never came back out. And that bad A&M went into the locker room, Diesel, and never came back out. I just don't know how you can explain the turnaround. Like Marcel Reed was horrible in the first half, right? He was not good, but he finished the game with 439 yards and 3 touchdowns. He did have 2 picks, but he finished. I don't know how you just can't muster enough. Mike Furry's the new offensive coordinator, right? We go from, my phone's blowing up on Saturday, we go from Mike Furry being the best thing since sliced bread to 2 hours later, Diesel, South Carolina doing the unthinkable. And I just don't know how. And I get that the opposition, the team you're playing is really, really good. You got to give credit to A&M. But, like, yes, things do change at halftime, but you still can do the same things that you did in the first half. I'm frustrated because I just don't understand it. And when I don't understand things in life, I become frustrated. I don't understand how you can look so good in the first half, but you can't even get a single freaking point on the board. That's frustrating.
Yeah, that explains your love life too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If you're not good at something, you get frustrated because you don't understand it. I mean, I don't understand how if you're Jeremiah Donati, you let Shane Beamer back on your plane.
Yeah.
Like he had to get on a private plane. Shane, think about that, Tolos. Think about that, South Carolina fans. Shane Beamer flew private back to Columbia. I mean, at least put his ass on a Greyhound bus, give him 2 days to think about what he's done. He doesn't need to be back in the building anytime soon. That'll give you time to change the locks, get his key card codes switched out. That was pathetic. That was truly pathetic when you consider the speech that he gave to the reporter at halftime, all jacked up, and he's walking out of the stadium and walking into the tunnel doing this mess. Oh my God, we're going to win the game. And then you choke. You choke in the second half. That's why Shane Beamer doesn't deserve to be a head coach in the SEC.
Well, and again, I'm going to save my Shane Beamer comments for later because we have Overreaction Monday. We have a lot to get to. But Diesel, when you just look at the play that happened, I don't understand it. You talk about Shane Beamer, and I can't disagree. But take, for example, third quarter of play, 2 minutes to go. South Carolina's up 30-17, right? You still have a comfortable lead. A&M drives down the field, one big play, and then Marcel Reed finds, I think it was the tight end, just butt naked, wide open. And I mean wide open with like 2:04 to go in the third quarter. A&M scores. It's now 30-24, I believe. Mm-hmm. And then you have a chance with a minute or 2 minutes to go in the third quarter. It was the tight end, Nate, however you pronounce his last name, that scored. They give you like 2 minutes to go in the third quarter and the entire fourth quarter. At this point, we all knew, anybody that was watching the game knew at this point that this thing was getting way too close for comfort, right? You're talking about a one-score game. You went from 30-3, and then now all of a sudden A&M has not only scored 2 times in a row, but they have all the momentum. It's a home game. Third quarter ends, and it's 30-24. Here's what's frustrating. The damage, yes, maybe has already been done, but at the fourth quarter, at the beginning of the fourth quarter, Diesel, you have an opportunity to score and make it a 2-score game once again. But what happens? You can't do anything on offense. They get the football back, and within 2 minutes, within less than 2 or 3 minutes in the fourth quarter of play, 10 or 11 minutes on the clock, they're already scoring again. So now all of a sudden, you have not only managed to let the lead slip away, E.J. Smith, that 4-yard touchdown run he had in the fourth quarter, you've let them just take the bulls by the horns, if you will. And at that point, you look lifeless. So when we talk about Shane Beamer and the ramifications that are going to come from this game on Saturday, I want to know why. I said a minute ago, I don't understand why the talent just disappears, like why all the execution disappears, but I want to know why this team just quit. I want to know why this team didn't have any fight or any life or any heart left them in the fourth quarter of play with 10:47 to go. It was a tie game. You still have opportunities to win the game. And the way these Gamecocks folded like a cheap tent down the stretch, it is just, there's just no excuse to this point. And I don't, like I said a minute ago, I don't understand. I've watched this game 4 times. I don't understand how you just flip the script, Diesel. Lenora Sellers, he had no time, but he was bad in the second half. He wasn't good. And South Carolina fans should just be absolutely livid on this Monday.
Remember a couple years ago when the story came out, it was about Oklahoma State, back when Oklahoma State was really good, by the way, that the players, when they were playing an inferior opponent, they would goof off. They would party the night before. Some of them were talking about smoking weed before playing the game. That's the only explanation if you're Texas A&M, because otherwise you forgot how to football in the first half of that ball game. Pyrrhic victory, maybe tiny little bit of silver lining. South Carolina did hold A&M to their second lowest point total of the season.
Yeah.
So that's good. A&M scored 31 points against somebody and only scored 16 points in a win against Auburn. Look, I'm going to the game on Saturday where South Carolina is hosting Coastal Carolina. I legitimately think there's a chance Coastal upsets South Carolina now. I mean, how if you're no longer bowl eligible and you lose in such deflating fashion? You laughed at me last week when I brought this up. They lost in deflating fashion against Texas A&M. You want to talk about quitting on your coach, quitting on your season with 2 games left to go.
Yeah.
South Carolina, these players could say, you know what? Why should we care? Why should we go out there and put our bodies at risk against an inferior opponent in Coastal Carolina? And that's how you get beat. Okay. That's how you get beat. Coastal was in a shootout with Georgia Southern over the weekend. They lost, but Coastal was scoring points every single quarter. They scored 6 points in the third. I didn't watch the game, so either they hit 2 field goals or they scored a touchdown and missed the PAT. But they put up 40 points in a loss. You telling me that team is not going to be motivated to put belt to ass in Columbia? They're going to be. And the Chanticleers are coming, Tolos. You Gamecock fans, you better watch out for Coastal. I mean, if South Carolina losing to A&M in the way that they did, in my opinion, should be grounds to fire Shane Beamer. The problem is the market for head coaches is as bad as it could possibly be right now. But if they lose to Coastal, I think Jeremiah Donati's got no choice but to fire Shane Beamer. So, I don't think Shane Beamer is going to get the opportunity to hire another OC. I think there's a very good chance Shane Beamer is no longer the coach at South Carolina on Sunday of this week.
Well, if that happens, then yeah, you're probably looking at some serious ramifications. I don't think that does, but if it were to happen, yeah, Shane Beamer could be out the door. Maybe you wait one more week until you get done with the Clemson game because the season's pretty much over at that point anyways. But what I worry about with South Carolina, not only with Coastal, but also with Clemson, is what we've seen to be true in 2025. South Carolina in tight spots just doesn't have it. And it all starts up front, Diesel. Every single bit of it starts up front. When you're in tight games, we saw it against Alabama. They led Alabama right in the fourth quarter. All right, 8:41 to go in the fourth quarter against A&M. It's 31-30 A&M leads. Lenora Sellers on that drive after A&M scores has no protection. He's running around like a chicken with his head cut off. They kick or they punt it to A&M. A&M gets into South Carolina territory, and what do? They get all the way down near the goal line, and your defense makes a stand. You get the football. I think it was 3rd and goal with like 3 minutes to go. They killed a ton of time off the clock. A&M did, right? So even though you blew the lead, your defense late in that game gave you an opportunity. A&M had 4 turnovers. 4 turnovers. Your defense, once again, late in the game, gives you an opportunity, Diesel. 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and 30 seconds, whatever it is to go in the game. You've got the football down 1 point with an opportunity to go kick a game-winning field goal and beat A&M. Is it bad at that point that you've let them come back? Yes. But all that matters at the end of the day is finding a way to get 3 points. You can't move the ball. The offensive line doesn't protect. What happens? 4th and 6. Lenore Sellers, Diesel takes the snap, throws it, to I think it was the right sideline, 4th and 6. South Carolina's able to move the ball. Less than 2 minutes to go. Again, all you need is a field goal, and what happens? On 2nd and 1, 2nd down and 1 to go, Shane Beamer and Mike Furry put Lenoris in a shotgun situation. He takes the snap, and he has no time whatsoever to breathe. The offensive line was absolutely horrendous. So I say that to bring this up. When South Carolina's in tight games this year in 2025, if they're in a tight game against Coastal, if they're in a tight game against Clemson, Lenoris Sellers, number one, doesn't have the protection to go win games. And number two, he doesn't have the wherewithal in 2025 to go win games. He just simply hasn't been good enough. And that drive, or then it then became 3rd and 12, that was just another example of the Gamecocks can't close it out when games are tight.
I know Shane Beamer was asked a question in the postgame. It was either the postgame or his availability over the weekend, additional availability over the weekend, was asked about, players coming back and about Lenoris Sellers coming back. I hope that he has been in Lenoris Sellers' inbox all weekend saying, please, 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 please come back. And if you can't get a definitive, yes, coach, I'm coming back, go ahead and sit him. Play Cutter Woods. Play anybody else. Give him a shot. Right? What are you putting Lenoris Sellers out there for if you're playing him in the final 2 games of the season with bowl eligibility not on the table anymore?
And you know what? A Gamecock fan told me over the weekend, they said, well, Cole, the first half was a fluke anyways, right? You didn't have a run game. A&M was horrific. And they said the first half was a fluke. And my response to that is, maybe it is. Maybe the first half is a fluke. However, even if it were to have been a fluke, you're still an SEC program. You still have talent. You can still muster 3 points, right? You can still you should be able to. But on the flip side, I guess, they had, once again, no running game, no rushing attack whatsoever on Saturday. Howell had 3 carries for 30 yards. That was their leading rusher. Other than that, Lenoris Sellers ran 12 times for 28 yards. They had 0 run game. Lenoris Sellers was good through the air. He did have that 1 pick, but the offensive line, like Diesel, I've never in my life seen an offensive line this bad. From the very get-go, you watch the second half to the end of the game, there was no chance that offense was going to move. And again, it goes back to what I said a minute ago. When you have a 30-3 lead, A&M comes back, and it's the biggest comeback in school history. I understand that you may have deficiencies, but I look at Mike Furry and I look at Shane Beamer and say, guys, I get that your offensive line sucks. I get that you have no run game whatsoever. But I can tell you this. You look on that sideline, there's enough talent to figure out a way to go get 1 score. And giving up the lead's one thing, but for me, what's most frustrating is the fact that Shane Beamer and Mike Furry couldn't look at that sideline and figure out a way to adapt and find somebody. This whole Lenoris thing's not working, Diesel. Like, Lenoris running around just in circles isn't working. You're an SEC program. You should have somebody that can go get you 1 score, and that's just embarrassing, the state of this program. And I'll get to my thoughts on Beamer later, but the state of this program right now, from a recruitment standpoint, to what happened on Saturday, to talent, adapting and developing talent, South Carolina fans should be livid.
Texter at on the text line, 844 fan phone, says only playing in the ACC would solve the Gamecocks' problems. The top 5 to 6 teams in the SEC have over $1 billion in NIL value. They will never win the SEC. Another texter here says, Hurricane Jeff says, remember what I told you guys back at Ingalls and Boiling Springs about Lenoris Sellers? Hurricane Jeff is predicting with a lot of people on the internet that Lenoris Sellers is headed to Miami. But Hurricane Jeff, what are you basing that off of? Did you see some random tweet that said Lenoris Sellers could go to Miami and you took it as fact? I don't know here. Texter says, Clemson fan here, if Carolina has a 10-point plus lead on us in 2 weeks, I don't see Clemson winning at all, even after this weekend. Wow, that's a Clemson fan who is saying that if South Carolina gets up on them by 10, there's no way Clemson's coming back on them.
Yeah, that game, and again, we'll talk about it next week, the week of Thanksgiving. That game's just like, who knows right now? I mean, somebody asked me over the weekend, who would I pick today? I'd probably pick Clemson right now because going back to your point about South Carolina and what they may or may not do against Coastal Carolina, Diesel, you just don't have any faith right now. You don't know what to expect. There's been all kind of rumors and chatter this weekend on message boards about Shane Beamer and Clayton White getting into it. And again, we'll get to Beamer at 4 o'clock, overreactions at 5 o'clock. I've got some thoughts on Shane Beamer as well. But just as far as the actual game goes, I don't know how, Diesel, to kind of segue, I don't know how you find an excuse to be happy with what you have after what happened Saturday. That was as embarrassing as I have ever seen in college football.
On the stream, Dan B says the buyout is almost $28 million. JB saying no way, and Dewey saying no way that South Carolina pays that buyout. Man, if you got LSU trying to find a way to pay $54 million and you can't come up with half that for a guy that just blew a 27-point road lead at halftime on the number 3 team in the country, then that tells me you're not serious about football. When we come back with a real Bryce Young, please stand up. That performance he had yesterday, oh my God, did somebody else put on his jersey? What happened in Atlanta? Talking about the Panthers and the Falcons next. Cole, I'm going to propose a new rule that we only talk about the Carolina Panthers on Wednesdays, which is commonly known as opposite day. Because every single time I talk about these Carolina Panthers and say, I think I got a beat on them, I think I got them figured out. Either they're pretty good and they're going to compete with everybody down the stretch, and then they lay an egg against the Saints. Or I say they suck and they're going to get trounced on the road in Atlanta, and then all of a sudden – Bryce Young goes out there and puts up a career best on the Atlanta Falcons on their home field, Cole. It was absurd the way he performed on Sunday. Congratulations to Bryce. I mean, I don't think it's going to change my opinion about whether or not the Carolina Panthers should think about replacing him, because one great game should not get you a long-term contract in the NFL. But, whew, man. Bryce Young led this team down not only to a game-winning field goal, but led this team down into a position to be scoring touchdowns when they absolutely had to have them.
Yeah, and I think that's what the question now becomes, Diesel, because to your point, every time we do bring up something about Bryce Young and it's not going good and he's not the guy, it does seem like he, proves us wrong. I would say this, a couple of things on what happened yesterday with the Panthers. They're now 6-5 on the season, right? They're still in contention to make the postseason. That's what's number one. That's what's most important. Number two, I think it shows that the NFL is the most, out of any sport, the most week-to-week league of any other sport out there. College football is becoming that way, more so week-to-week, but we truly see it's a new season. Not every season, but Diesel, it's a new season every week. And the Carolina Panthers have proved that because, to your point a minute ago, again, going back to what you said with the Saints, we've seen the highest of highs. We've seen the lowest of lows. There's a lot of good. There's 6 wins in 2025, but there's also a lot of inconsistency. So where do you draw the line? Where do you find that consistency? And I guess we all have to understand, Diesel, that now the question becomes, can Bryce Young be that consistent? I'm not asking him to go 448 every week in and week out, with a QBR of 74.7, right? That's not realistic. But how do you go from like 100 yards one week to 448 the next? The level of inconsistency, I think, has Panther fans thinking, I don't know what to make of Bryce Young.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's not like they were playing, the Patriots, right? The Falcons were 3-6 coming into this game. You'd already beaten the tar out of them on your field a couple of weeks ago. And it's not as if Michael Penix was playing lights out football and then had to be taken out of the game. He wasn't playing great. And they bring in a veteran that did a decent enough job kind of moving the Falcons down the field. But ultimately, this Carolina Panthers defense that we have all trashed and left for dead and buried how many times over the past couple of seasons, they ultimately were able to clamp down and do what they needed to do when it really, really mattered. Yeah. And that, that kept putting Bryce Young in a situation. I don't know what it is. There was a movie, Cole, you probably never saw it. I think I might have watched about 30 minutes of it, thought it was really stupid. It was called Crank. It was Jason Statham, where he had some sort of a device. If his heart rate dropped below a certain amount, they were going to blow him up or something. So the whole movie, he's trying to figure out ways to keep his adrenaline up, right? So he's jumping out of airplanes. He's making love to beautiful women, whatever it might be. Maybe that's Bryce Young's MO. He needs to be under a tremendous amount of pressure, because how many times have we seen Bryce Young stink it up through the majority of a game? Then he gets the ball in a 2-minute or a 4-minute situation and is able to lead the team down the field for a game-winning drive. Like, he is terrible from the start of the game through the midway through the third quarter. And then all of a sudden, late third quarter, fourth quarter, he turns it on and finds ways to put his team in position. It's unfathomable.
It is.
How Bryce Young is able to keep doing this.
But to your point, you look at what the defense did, Diesel, in the second half. The Carolina Panthers defense only allowed 6 points in the second half. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, 6 points in the fourth quarter. And none in the third, none in overtime, right? So the Panthers defense was really, really good in the second half and in overtime. Now, to Bryce Young, I think when you watch the game, and by the way, real quick before I get to Bryce, I hate that Michael Penix got hurt. I hate the news that came out today about Michael Penix probably being done for the season. That's to use a Dewey word, that's a travesty because we've seen the upside of Michael Penix Jr. So now the quarterback situation in Atlanta becomes really strange once again. Not long ago with the Kirk Cousins situation and Michael Penix, but Bryce Young was just productive. Again, 448 yards. You mentioned the career high. It was also a Panthers franchise record.
He averages 181.
Right.
And he put up 448.
So, again,
that's 3 games for Bryce.
I think a question to a general manager or a director of player personnel or somebody who really studies and evaluates these kind of quarterbacks is, hey, Dan Morgan, hey, whatever your name may be, is Bryce Young, his inconsistencies, does that fall more on him and his inability just to be consistent in the little things? Or when you look at him in this situation that he's in Carolina, is it a multitude of factors, including things not relating to do with Bryce Young, meaning other guys, right? Like, are his inconsistencies on him or are his inconsistencies on other guys or the lack thereof of other guys? Because if you look at the performance on Sunday, you'd think from one game, he solved it all. He solved every equation possible.
He didn't solve it all. I mean, you said it, inconsistency, amazing in the pass game, -1 yard in the rush game for Bryce Young. And I'm not expecting Bryce Young to go out there and be Lamar Jackson. I'm not expecting him to go out there and put up 35, 40, 50 rushing yards a game. It would sure as heck help if he was able to put up 50 yards a game rushing, but he only took off one time in this game. That's, in a way, it's a good thing because you don't want your 5'3" hobbit-sized quarterback going out there and getting blasted by dudes that are like 345 pounds. You don't want that to happen, but he should still have the ability, right? That's one of the reasons why you wanted him in the first place.
But should he?
Because he has the ability to
create. Why? But why? I mean,
because it adds an element that most teams have a hard time defending.
I know, but if he goes for 448, who the heck cares about what he does with his legs, right?
But he doesn't go for 448 except for this one time.
Well, he's going to. He's going.
Okay. He averages 180 yards a game, right? He only averages like 16 yards rushing per game. But hey, if you're going to say you can only muster 180 yards in the pass game, then you better be able to go out there and pick up 75 yards a game on the ground.
Well,
but if you're able to do this on a regular basis, I mean, not this, but like, let's call it 300 yards. Let's call it 250. Let's call it 275 and still give 40 yards a game on the ground. Now you're talking about a weapon, not a liability.
And again, I think what's so tough and so frustrating as a Panther fan, if you are a Carolina Panther fan, is like, why can't these trends be consistent? Why can't his decision-making be consistent? Because yesterday, his decision-making was really good. 0 turnovers. Why can't his downfield accuracy be really good every week? Because yesterday, his success on 10-plus air yard throws, that's a big deal. He was accurate down the field. Why can't his pocket toughness and awareness be consistent? He played through an ankle injury and put up 400-plus yards. That's not stat-driven at all, right? And then you also ask the question, going back to the whose fault is it anyways, right? Instead of whose line is it anyways, whose fault is it anyways? The offense identity shift, him opening up the field a little bit more yesterday, around calling the offense around his strengths. We've said it. We've been on record saying we don't believe Bryce Young is the long-term answer, the long-term guy. But when I go back to asking the question of whose fault is it anyway, I want to know, are Dave Canales and those guys on staff, you want Bryce Young to be consistent? Are those guys being consistent every week and giving him the best game plan possible and giving him the best tools at his disposal possible? Because ultimately, you've got to have a good scheme to have good execution. I'm not saying Dave Canales is being too inconsistent, Diesel, but my goodness, you look at what happened yesterday, and it does make you ask the question, is Dave Canales doing what he needs to do week in and week out to make sure this guy, not asking for 440 yards, but hey, it'd be nice to hover around 250.
Keith NTR says, so you're saying Bryce Young is a sandbagger? I would not say that at all. I'd say Bryce Young had one of those out-of-body experiences yesterday that we are probably not going to see. And this other texter says it's almost like someone really smart said it might be due more to the players around Bryce than Bryce Young himself. What do you mean? They didn't change players around Bryce Young for this game. Are you saying that the players around Bryce are the reason why Bryce throws into triple coverage and throws a lot of picks? No, come on, man. Like, you can't base some argument that Bryce is amazing off of one football game. We're basing it off of his entire career, which is how many games at this point? 35, 40 games at this point. You're not going to get me to agree and say that one elite game is who Bryce Young is, and all those other games, those were outside of the norm for Bryce Young.
To the texter from the 205 that you just read, did they have new players yesterday? Did we miss something?
Yeah.
I mean, what are we missing here?
Exactly.
I mean, it's the same team. It's the same roster.
I'm happy that he finally hit. And hey, if Bryce Young can somehow start stacking games like this, and he's got all next season to do it, because I've said there's no reason this offseason for the Carolina Panthers to draft a quarterback unless somebody amazing just falls into their lap, which is probably not going to happen. Bryce Young probably has next season as well to try to replicate or at least simulate some form of this game consistently. And he has not in any way, shape, or form been able to do this consistently. His consistency is looking terrible. This is the outlier, not the norm, texter.
Right, and I think that's what it goes back to coaching. I think, Diesel, Bryce Young may be better than we think. He may be worse than we think. But ultimately, for me, this is a bad coaching job. I'll tell you why. If you see what you saw yesterday, Dave Canales, it is now up to him and this staff, Diesel, to take what they saw yesterday and figure out not, oh, that was great, let's do it again next week. No. Figure out why Bryce was so good yesterday.
Yeah.
Figure out what coverages Bryce saw yesterday that allowed him to succeed in the way that he did. Again, we all know he's not going to go for 440 plus every week, but it is now on the coaches to figure out, yes, great offensive linemen make quarterbacks better. We know that. Good receivers make quarterbacks better. We know that. But you've got to figure out what's making Bryce Young successful in these games where he does show out, and not ask him to do 500 yards every week, but find a more consistent baseline. The baseline right now, you can brag all you want to when Bryce Young has a big game and say, oh, I told you so, I told you so. But the reality of it is, texter, and anybody out there that's, upset with Diesel and I sticking by our point of Bryce Young not being the guy, the reality is Bryce Young's baseline has not changed. His performance yesterday was incredible, but I'm not going to change my stance on him not being the quarterback for the future until he changes his baseline. Once he changes his baseline, which means his consistent play week after week, then I can become I can adapt to, be okay with saying maybe I think Bryce Young could be the franchise guy, but that's what's got to change for me.
Well, it's also ludicrous that he threw for 448 and they had to take this game into overtime in the first place. How many times have you ever seen a stat line like that, where the team with that quarterback doesn't blow the other team out by 3 scores? I mean, that with putting up 448, having Rico Dowdle busting off big runs the way that he did, they should have trounced the Atlanta Falcons again, right? So while we're giving the defense a lot of credit for a great second half performance, while we're giving Bryce Young a lot of credit for finally having some vision and hitting the open guys and completing passes down the field more than 10 yards, they should have blown the Falcons off the field yesterday with a performance like that. So you can mask a lot of bad stats with one great stat, and that's what's happening here. Yeah, great that you got the win. It was a resilient win. Dave Canales even says it here in this audio clip. Dave Canales talks about this being a resilient win. It shouldn't be a resilient win when your quarterback is putting up 450.
A bunch of different scenarios. I can't say enough about the resilience of this group. First and foremost, let me give credit to the Atlanta Falcons, who just came out and had an amazing first half, and our defense was able to settle down, in the second half. And offensively, we had a couple of possessions, early on that got away from us, but settled down and made the plays happen when we needed to, and we needed to hold down, so we third down, fourth down, hold it to get it done. But I'm just really proud of the resilience of the group to just refocus, go to.
Well, the resilience, what really was key there is the fact that Bryce Young stumbled on that fourth down. That should have been the ball game right there. That should have been ball game, Falcons win right there. but somehow the defense was able to hold him to a field goal, get the ball back, and then go down and put up points again. I remember tweeting, "Good God, Bryce Young," and then Bryce Young goes and does what he does on the following possession, and I retweeted again in all caps, "Good God, Bryce Young." You know, there's some extremes in there, and they got to figure out a way to bring him to the middle, because even if you're not going to get amazing play, if you can get consistently good play, now you're talking about maybe a serviceable starter.
And what we saw yesterday was definitely a sign of life. Seemed like we're going and moving in the right direction, right? Want to be very clear. I want Bryce Young to be the guy. I want him to have success. But until I change my mind completely and say, you know what, I've seen enough where you've got to invest in this guy. Let's make him a higher paid quarterback. Let's put these guys around him. Let's spend the money. I've got to see a more consistent baseline. RJ on the text line says yesterday was Bryce Young's highest passing yards in the game since throwing for 455 and that loss to Tennessee back in 2022. Texter from the 205 says, my point is that it sounded like you've said Bryce doesn't have the tools or ability to succeed in the NFL. I think this weekend proved that in the right circumstances, he absolutely has the ability to, whether it's coaching or players around him holding him back. I don't know. I do know, Diesel, that a lot happened this weekend. We've got to get to our Daily Wires next. Well, so much happened over the sports weekend that we have got to get to what we call our daily wires. It's the headlines of everything that went on. Not everything. We don't have time to get to every single thing, but close.
As much as we can.
As much as we can. I want to say congratulations to the JL Man boys cross-country team for winning the 5A Division I cross-country state championship locally right here in Greenville. Congrats to you guys. Tonight, Diesel, Monday Night Football. 3-5-1 Dallas Cowboys are in Las Vegas taking on the 2-7 Raiders. Dallas is currently favored by 3.5 points.
A winnable
teams.
Game for the Cowboys.
I don't know. I don't know if there's many of those in 2025, but we'll see. We shall see. Browns rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders made his NFL debut Sunday against the Baltimore Ravens, coming on at the start of the second half. After Dylan Gabriel sustained a concussion, Sanders finished 4 of 16 passing, 47 yards with an interception, and was sacked twice. He also had 3 carries for 16 yards as Cleveland, which led by 9 points at the which led by 6 points at the half. Diesel lost 23-16.
So does our texter think that he has the ability, or it's just bad players around him?
Both.
Well,
I'm kidding.
It's funny, I mean, it's shocking that this is his season debut. That's wild to me that it's taken this long to get him in a game. But also there's been so much momentum over the last 4, 5, 6 weeks about Shedeur climbing the depth chart, looking good, feeling happy, being a good teammate and good citizen in the locker room. And he gets in, you're like, oh, yeah, that's why. That's why he's not starting.
Diesel, the initial concern is that Steelers quarterback Aaron Rodgers has a slight break in his left non-throwing wrist. A source told ESPN's Adam Schefter the quarterback will undergo further testing Monday to determine the full extent of the injuries. Not a good sign for Aaron Rodgers. Tennessee defensive back / punt returner Boo Carter is no longer a member of the football team. A team official confirmed to ESPN on Sunday, ending his career in Tennessee. He did not show up to Neyland Stadium for the Volunteers' 42-9 victory over New Mexico State on Saturday. Also in college football, Diesel, Mike Locksley will remain in place as Maryland's football coach in 2026. The school plans to significantly increase financial support for the program. How about that? Maybe it's not the coach. Maybe we've got to give him more support. By the way, he's in his 8th season, and they have lost 6 straight football games.
What's his record at Maryland, Mike?
They've been 4-8. They were 4-8 last season. They won a bowl game in 3 consecutive seasons, so that means they won 6 games probably in the past 3 seasons.
37-47.
There you go. Not good.
Maryland. Not great. But I know a lot of people have a very high opinion of Mike.
Yeah. Former Penn State coach James Franklin and Virginia Tech are in early stages of talks with some resolution on his candidacy expected in the coming days, sources told ESPN's Pete Thamel. They're still running a full search, but there is mutual interest between the two parties.
I like it. That was been my pick for a long time, is send James Franklin to Virginia Tech. I like it.
Locally over the weekend, Diesel, Clemson basketball fell to Georgetown on Saturday, 79-74. Wofford defeated Bellarmine 94-86 on Saturday, and Northern Iowa defeated Furman 70-54 on Friday. Congratulations to Nate Garner and North Greenville, the Trailblazers, on Saturday, defeating UNC Pembroke for a second time this season, 34-20, and claiming the Conference Carolinas Championship. The Trailblazers are the 7th seed and will travel to West Florida this Saturday in the first round of the postseason. Tonight, Brad Brunell and company host North Alabama at 9 o'clock. It wasn't too long ago that North Alabama was a Division II team as well, Diesel. And then real quick for you, in college football over the weekend, Furman defeated VMI 32-14. Wofford defeated the Citadel 16-14. And Furman will face Clemson on Saturday at 4:30, the final game of the season. The Hornets, by the way, off to a 4-9 start, are in action facing the 8-5 Raptors at 7:30.
About to be 4-10 in a couple hours. Yeah, just when you thought maybe the Hornets. I haven't even looked to see if Brandon Miller is playing again for the Hornets. I know he was injured, and I know that has really hurt him. They got off to a decent start with him, and obviously once they lost him, once he went down, it kind of changed the complexity of what this season was able to be early on for the Charlotte Hornets. When we come back, Cole, we didn't get a chance to get into it. Let's talk a little bit about this Nick Harbor running with the law in the tunnel in Texas A&M, plus some more thoughts that you and I both have on Shane Beamer and whether or not he should keep his job in Columbia next. Well, the best play made on a South Carolina Gamecock in the first half of the A&M comeback victory over South Carolina on Saturday might have been made in the tunnel, Cole, when too big for his britches. I don't know what would possess a uniformed police officer who's there to provide security for the game to shoulder check a player coming out of a tunnel. That's just the absurdity of that situation. And rightfully so, he was eventually relieved of his duties of doing any more work on the sideline of games. But to me, that's an inexcusable moment, Cole. And there's no other reason for it because, if you don't know what we're talking about, Nick Harbor catches a big time touchdown pass. His momentum takes him into the tunnel. He didn't slow down in time as momentum took him up into the tunnel. A couple of other South Carolina players went into the tunnel to check on him. I did see that, some people were saying he tweaked his leg in some way on that play. So maybe they went in to check on him. Maybe they were just there for the celebration. But as they're on their way back out of the tunnel, a highway patrol officer, sheriff, I don't know what department this guy was in. He just decided to go through and shoulder check Nick Harbor. I'm all for supporting police officers, but come on, what would possess somebody to do that?
Yeah, I'll tell you this. When I watched it the first time, I thought, wait a minute, let me watch it again. And I said, And then I said, let me watch it a third time. I watched it a third time. I said, what I miss here? Turns out I didn't miss anything. If you would have told me on Friday that LeBron James, Stephen A. Smith, Brandon Walker, and Barstool would be tweeting about South Carolina on Saturday, I simply, Diesel, would not have known why. But nonetheless, this became worldwide news. Unfortunately, the Gamecocks lost. We talked about that in the first segment. We'll talk about it more. But the fact that when you watch that, like I did over and over and over, you don't see anything that Nick Harbor did wrong. Nothing. No. And the fact that the cop then turns around and the arrogance, I have no idea. Yeah. The fact of the matter is there's nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, that made the cop react in the way he did. This is clear-cut, 100% on the cop. He should have been dismissed of his game day duties. Yeah. I'm glad he was. This is inexcusable.
That to me says this cop is a gigantic Texas A&M fan, and he was in his feelings at that moment and didn't know how to react to it. I don't know why he turned to walk up the tunnel. He may have had a legitimate reason to go into the tunnel, and he might have been called for something else. He might have been going to the bathroom. Don't know. Doesn't really matter. But if you watch that play happen, Nick Harbor and the player to Nick's right make a space for him to cut in between them, and the cop doesn't take any effort to turn his shoulder and squeeze in between these two mountain of football players. He chooses to shoulder check both of them and then turn around and get an attitude about it. It's absurd how that happens.
I'll tell you this. Everything's bigger in Texas, right? Even attitudes, even arrogant officers. It's a shame. And again, it was not just like a small deal. Everybody was talking about, and a texter even brought it up. He said, look, in the same play, the ball boy slaps the ball out of Nick Harbor's hands before he even gets to the tunnel. I don't know what it is, but for whatever reason, and that includes cops' attitudes, everything truly is bigger in Texas.
I had to send this to you, Cole. I sent you a screenshot of LeBron James retweeting the still shot. LeBron James tweeted that A&M cop needs to be suspended. That was premeditated and corny AF. Face palm emoji. Yeah. He went out of his way to start some bleep. Do better, man. And then, of course, LeBron James is just getting absolutely trounced by other people, other users on Twitter. Basically, everybody was tweeting some version of coming from the guy that would have been on the floor and begging for a whistle from the referee for a hit like that. Yeah, it's fandom. It's guy was really in his feels about how this game was going, and good for him. Being able to work those events,
Pays good.
I'm sure it is.
Pays
sure
good.
It does.
I have friends that do it at Clemson.
Pays well.
Pays really
I don't know
well.
exactly what it is they're looking for on the field. Are they scanning the crowd, looking for
They're just
people
there
doing
for
bad
added
things?
security.
They're just there to look like they're showing
added
strength.
safety. And again, it pays really well. By the way, we mentioned this.
Eric Hines.
Yeah. What do you say?
He says that state trooper is probably a Dallas fan as well. What a douche. Fly,
Eric,
Eagles, fly.
Eric, that's not called for. That kind of upsets me a little
Eric,
bit.
keep it coming. Keep it coming.
It upsets me a little bit. Hey, real quick, we mentioned this in the Daily Wires, Diesel, but it is looking as it is official. Pete Thamel just reported breaking news on this Monday. Virginia Tech, James Franklin have finalized an agreement for him to become the school's next head coach. So James Franklin is headed to Blacksburg, Diesel, to become the next coach of the Virginia Tech Hokies. Did you think we'd see James Franklin in the ACC?
I find that really interesting here.
How about that?
I know that you can make fun of James Franklin for not winning top 10 games. Good news is he's not going to have to play that many top 10 games in the ACC. So his record against top 10 teams ought to be irrelevant. But think about this. You bring a guy in that has college football playoff experience. He knows how to talk to big-time boosters and get money out of them. It's an engineering school, so there's some alumni with money there who ought to be opening up those pocketbooks now that James Frank. I just hope beyond a shadow of hope that Virginia Tech is smart enough to work out a deal with a much more progressive style of buyout so that they don't get themselves into the position where they could end up owing this guy $30, $40, $50 million to go away.
Immediate reaction, Virginia Tech could not have made a better hire.
Yeah.
Period. Like this was the best hire they could have made. Clemson faces Virginia Tech in 2026, by the way. So to your point, he's not going to have to play the top 25s week in and week out as to if he were to, let's say, go to Arkansas, right? Or somewhere in the SEC, Diesel, or Florida. James Franklin, I know Penn State was home to him, but I'm just telling you, with Dabo Swinney and Clemson faltering the way they have, in the ACC, look at the standings right now. The ACC is up for grabs as it's ever been. I think this is a home run move. Now, let me say this real quick. Virginia Tech better shut up and let him bring in whoever he wants to bring in. I don't care how much it costs. I don't care how much debt you have to go in. I don't care how much money you have to ask for from your boosters. You just hired James Franklin.
Don't cheap out now.
Don't screw this up. Let him bring in whoever he wants to bring in, and I think that's a home run hire.
Open up the coffers, pay whatever you need to get elite skill players from using NIL.
Go buy them. Go get them.
Phenomenal.
Hey, they could, if they wanted to, they could be a contender in the ACC next season.
That's true. That's true.
Portal, NIL, go buy them.
You telling me that there are not players that were with him at Penn State that loved him that would come to Virginia Tech?
Yeah.
You're telling me they're not going to get 5-6 players off of who he recruited out of high school? These are Big Ten elite team caliber prospects could be making their way down to Blacksburg. I love it because it puts him, in a familiar, regional territory. There's not that much different from Northwestern, or Southwestern Virginia and Eastern Pennsylvania, as well as, Vanderbilt, the western side of Tennessee. I think it's perfect. Match made in heaven. Couldn't have done a better job.
Maybe that's what we'll see come to fruition that we expected Belichick in North Carolina to be, right? James Franklin doesn't have the NFL pedigree, but maybe the situation marries itself a lot better. And I don't know. I'm not saying they go win national championships, but I think it's a home run.
I still think, and now there's not another high profile opening in the ACC yet. I mean, NC State hasn't fired Dave Doran.
Clemson, just kidding. I'm kidding. Kidding.
Belichick still employed by North Carolina. I think a phenomenal strategy by the ACC would be to hire up these coaches, gobble up the coaches that these really twitchy, big-time SEC fans are casting to the side. I'm talking about Brian Kelly. Could you imagine Brian Kelly headed to Raleigh, coaching at NC State?
Yeah.
I think he's, better fit for North Carolina, but he's not going to get that job because
Well,
Belichick's not going anywhere.
Hey,
He made that very clear over the weekend.
The SEC did it in basketball. Why can't the ACC do it in football? And now we might get to talk to James Franklin on these airwaves at ACC kickoff next year.
I'm excited for it.
I mean, that's a big hire.
A little heads up for what's coming up in the future segments and the very next one. So coming up here in just about 8 or 9 minutes, we'll have on Grayson Mann of TigerNet, and coming up at 4:45, hot off the presses, the newest standings for the Upset Picks Challenge. Those are in my hand. As a matter of fact, they're already up on the Twitter page. If you haven't gone to see them, they're there. Go check them out. But we're going to go through them in the 4:45 segment.
Let me a few minutes we have left. Let's touch on Shane Beamer. We touched on this in the very first segment, but didn't get deep on it because we talked a lot about the game and what went wrong, and I expressed, my frustration in how in the world that happens in terms of what happened on Saturday. I'll get more in depth into it in 5 o'clock in the 5 o'clock overreaction segment, Diesel. But there's been a lot of rumors on message boards this weekend about Shane Beamer and Clayton White having to be separated, and things being tense in the coach's office this weekend, and Beamer not wanting to accept blame for what happened. There have been reporters that have tried to shut that down, but there's a lot of things circulating right now. And I'll tell you this, I've got a buddy of mine who's Diesel been anti-Shane Beamer for a long time. And him and I for several years now, probably two and a half years, have gone back and forth. He's played the fire Beamer side. I've been on the, hey, this is the right coach. I've said it on this show. I've said on this show that he's the right guy for the job. You've got to stick with him. I've said it on this show multiple times, right? Where I am today on the 17th day of November, I'm running out of ammunition. I've simply run out of excuses. I've simply run out of reasons. Diesel, I'm being transparent. I love Shane Beamer. I do. I love that guy, and I think that to the core, when it comes to X's and O's, knowing and coaching football, I think he's a really good football coach. But I am telling you, on the 17th day of November, I have run out of reasons as to why South Carolina should keep him. And here I am today admitting that I think this may be it. I think this may be the beginning of the end. I just don't see how. We talked about on Friday finding a scenario in which Carolina wins the game. I can't right now find a scenario in which Shane Beamer rebounds and brings this program and fan base back to life.
Well, all of what has already transpired, plus what happened this past weekend, I think that's when you get into a situation. If you're Jeremiah Donati, you may try. Let's say they don't fire him. You may still try to force an athletic director on Shane Beamer, offensive coordinator on Shane Beamer that he doesn't necessarily jive with, so that you can try to control some form of the outcome.
Yeah.
Why would you put another season or possibly two out there in the ether to see what happens? I mean, these people like that are CEOs. They want to be able to be in control of situations rather than paying somebody else $8.5 million to possibly fail again.
Well, here's the reality of it. He's lost a fan base, and I think he's close to losing the program. And just in terms of the players being there, I'm not saying the players have turned on him, but Diesel, man, this is as bad as it's been. And I just, like I said, I don't have any more excuses or reasons as to why to keep him. I just simply don't. Like, I've seen enough. I've given him so long. Like I said, I know him personally. I think the world of him. I think he's a great guy, and I think he's a good coach somewhere. But I just don't think this experiment at South Carolina is working, and I think it's time to move on. Well, I really do.
If Shane Beamer ends up being fired at the end of this season, I don't know that he ever gets another job as a head coach again.
I think he would.
Maybe a G5 head coach, maybe an FCS head coach.
I think he'd be a great ACC coach. Great ACC.
I don't
and
know.
Now Virginia Tech's gone.
I'd rather have him. I'd love to have him in the fundraising office. I'd love to have him as support staff, but I'm not giving him the reins as a head coach.
Let's go to the phone lines. Rick from Greer wants to weigh in. What's up, Rick?
I'm doing well. You haven't been listening to all the rumors then, have you?
What rumors are you talking about, Rick?
Shane Beamer has been talking to Arkansas in the SEC about being their coach.
Where did you hear these rumors, Rick?
Went on YouTube, and I also saw it on a sports show today. For what's the guy that screams all the time? He was talking about it.
Stephen A?
There have been rumors that Shane Beamer has been talking to Arkansas about becoming their head coach. And if so, he will get quit. I guess he'll just give it up at the end of the year if they don't fire him already. And, I mean, there's heavy talks.
So here's my Rick, here's my problem, and Diesel, here's my problem with Beamer at Arkansas. It's the same situation he's in now. Right. It's a bottom feeder SEC program that's trying to become relevant in the toughest conference. Nothing's going to change. He needs to be in a conference where he has a path navigable to win a conference championship. There's no difference. And I know South Carolina fans might be upset. There's no difference right now in these two jobs.
I mean, Cole and Rick, I'm not sure I'd be happy if the announcement was made that Shane Beamer was headed to App State and Dow Loggins was going to step down and be his OC. I'm not happy with that decision. So can you imagine being an Arkansas fan that's checking your phone and seeing the news saying, oh, we just hired Shane Beamer? They would riot.
I saw it on, I mean, yes, I'm full of bull, okay?
Yes, you are.
I saw this on the wires, and I believe there's something to it. And
insider
I
Rick,
think he'll be the next guy.
Rick, I saw a phone number written on a truck stop bathroom wall once that said, for a good time, call this number. I guarantee you're not going to have a good time when you call that number. So I wouldn't believe everything that you read online.
True, that's true. Have you got that number?
Bye, Rick.
Thanks, Rick. Well done. Well played.
You can't
Richard.
make it up, Rick. He is great. Good stuff, man. He's the best. Do you have that number? That's a promo. Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com. Let's talk what happened Friday night. I about said Saturday, but no. The Clemson Tigers ahead of the curve with a win. A crazy, wild game on Friday. We talk Clemson with Grayson Mann of TigerNet next.
844-FAN-PHONE. This is Wire to Wire with Cole, Bryson, and Diesel on the Fan Upstate.
Well, it's time to talk to Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com. He joins us every single Monday at this very time to talk all things Clemson, all things New England Patriots. Not really, but he does have his Patriots beanie on. But Grayson, we're not talking Clemson to lead the interview, the segment today. We're not talking Patriots. Let's get your thoughts on James Franklin making his way to the ACC. Breaking news in the very last segment that Virginia Tech is finalizing a deal with James Franklin for him to become their next head football coach. Your reaction to that?
I'd like to take it from two angles, if y'all don't mind. I'd love to talk about the Clemson angle of all this, but just for Virginia Tech alone, what a hire. I think it's the one that made the most sense for them. And you got someone like Franklin at Penn State, where I think it had run its course in Happy Valley. But overall, you look at a guy that can win 10 games consistently. He's going to be in a much easier conference now, in theory. And the expectation at Virginia Tech is certainly not going to be what it was at Penn State. He's not going to have to be asked to come in and win a national title immediately. So Virginia Tech, he's one that can recruit at an elite level. And so for a Clemson perspective, not only do they get to face Franklin in his debut year next fall at Death Valley, I think the competition back to the top just got a whole lot more difficult.
Grayson, we watched the SEC undergo its coaching overhaul, was that 6 years ago, where they were just constantly spending a ton of money hiring young, hot, up-and-coming coaches. I think the ACC in football should kind of adopt a little bit of that, except for instead of taking the risk on the younger guys, grab those guys that the really overly twitchy SEC and Big Ten programs are casting off. Brian Kelly won over 70% of his games at LSU. And I know there's not another big time opening in the ACC right now, but it would certainly make a lot of sense to see Brian Kelly in, a northern half of the ACC kind of program. I think it would really, really work. I mean, I don't know if anybody can come down from on high in the ACC and say, hey, go after those guys, hire those guys, because they're free to do whatever they want. But it seems like a strategy that would work, no?
I think this is just the beginning, Diesel, of a massive offseason in terms of movement across the country. Florida State, that job could be wide open. Miami, depending on what happens at the end of the season, you think those boosters would be happy if they suddenly miss the playoffs? I certainly don't think so. There's a lot of other programs right now that are kind of circulating around, but look what Jake Dicker just did at Wake Forest, and there's resources now to work with. So you bring in coaches that are proven, like James Franklin, to Virginia Tech that hasn't really sniffed success in quite some time, but has the backings to be able to do it. I think this is a massive hire and a massive boost to the conference. I can't wait for July when the ACC will prop this up as the coaches conference with Dabo and Belichick and James Franklin and what other cast of characters may join this conference. But man, this offseason just got a whole lot more interesting.
It really did. Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com, joining us right here on the Fan Upstate. If you have a Clemson-related question, get it in on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line, 844-326-3663. Grayson, Friday night lived up to the excitement. A drama-filled game, and YouTube TV and ESPN made it possible for millions to watch, including myself on my cell phone. So that's a positive. That's a plus. But now that you've had a few days to kind of let the dust settle and go back and watch that game, as I know you do all of the Clemson games, what was your biggest takeaway? Because, man, Louisville, they had, not silver platter moments, but they had a lot of opportunities where they could have won that football game, but Clemson gets a much-needed win.
Yeah, Cole, I thought the real turning point was that fumble that was caused by Avion Terrell, where it looked like Clemson was dead in the water. And then a few hours later, you're thinking Clemson's dead in the water again. And DeMonte Capehart, they need to put an Oscar in his locker room because the flop that he pulled off, there were people laughing in that press box. They were like, wow, how about that? Like they're rehearsing something over there in Tiger Town. But yeah, that was a game where that's one that screams a loss for Clemson, especially this year, where so many different variables happen. You have miscommunications at the goal line. We've seen that before. We've seen Clemson get cute at the goal line and it cost them. I thought at that point, when you have the miscommunication with Peter Woods at the goal line on 4th and 1, when it's been proven that Adam Randall is capable of getting a yard at his size, felt like that was a point of no return for Clemson. And time again, Louisville was handing it back to him. And so, sure, you could say Clemson didn't deserve to win, but ultimately my biggest takeaway was that in a really wacky game, those players continue to fight for Dabo Swinney, and he's been pounding it on the podium that this culture is rock solid. And yeah, it's a mess of a season, but we got the right idea here. We're fighting still, and in an NIL era, because he wants to point that out, is these players, their effort shouldn't be questioned. And I think Friday, rewatching it, yeah, it was a mess. It was emblematic of Clemson's season, but those guys are fighting.
Yeah.
Well, Grayson, talking to Grayson, man of Tiger Net, you mentioned him there. Adam Randall finally had that breakout game that we all hoped he would be able to achieve, over 100 yards. He had a big 46-yarder, long run there. What was it about this game that Adam Randall was either finally seeing the field better, or were they scheming around what he's good at, not trying to fit him into, as a square peg going into a round hole?
I think that square peg into the round hole is some of those toss plays we've seen with him where they try to, it's more of a speed to the outside type of thing. I think he's always been best in between the tackles, and each game you start to find little bits of progress, and it's whether he's making the right decision, but suddenly it's kind of plugged in by an incoming blitzer, or maybe the offensive line isn't holding up as well as you thought. So I think that for Randall, it's an interesting case study in terms of position study, or switches, excuse me. But overall, great game from him. He's been consistently Clemson's spark plug when it feels like they've been dead on arrival. The Troy game, Syracuse, he broke off a big one. It ultimately didn't matter there, and no one wants to talk about a Troy game from September. But in terms of results, Randall was able to provide, and finally they trusted him at the goal line to get it done, which is maybe something Clemson fans have been clamoring for, is you got this behemoth in the backfield. Don't get cute with it. Just run ISO with Randall, and you'll get it done.
In the moment, Grayson, which surprised you the most, the botch punt snap or the goal line stand?
Oh, man. Jack Smith, I felt bad for the kid because it feels like he's been rock solid outside one 15-yard punt, where Swinney has been, again, hammering it home. He's like, man, Jack Smith, bright spot for this team. And then you could have reasonably assumed, well, that's it. Clemson's lost on it was a bad snap by, I think it was Casperson or Florenzo.
Mm-hmm.
They rotate those long snappers, and Smith kind of falls on it instead of trying to punt it. Maybe it gets blocked and it gets worse. So a mess. It shocked me because I just felt like, oh man, this is more of the same of this game. It's just continued to get, it was like a dramatic third act movie where it just continues to build and build. Only it's like a third act comedy where the jokes continue to get more ludicrous. The goal line stand didn't necessarily surprise me because I've seen Clemson get cute at the one and it backfire. And they've used this Peter Woods thing to success, but I think teams have started to catch on to it, especially at fullback. And there's just not enough space right there for it to develop. So when you bring somebody out there who's a big man like Peter Woods, it doesn't necessarily work out sometimes. And it certainly didn't there. And it should have cost them the game, guys, but it ultimately didn't. So you got to give Clemson's defense credit for standing firm there.
Grayson, what's the absolute latest on Braden Jacobs and Walker Parks? I think both of them have already been announced to be out for the rest of the season. 2 offensive linemen going down at this point. I mean, it's more insult to injury. What did Dabo have to say after the game about those 2? And, I know they probably won't need either one of them to beat Furman on Saturday, but, 2 weeks from now when they got to face South Carolina, that hurts being down 2 key guys.
And Braden Jacobs, too, has been playing really well, but someone like Walker Parks battling injuries his entire career, and Swinney, you could kind of hear it in his voice, just the heartbreak of having to kind of talk about someone who has continuously battled injuries. That's sort of been the theme of Walker Parks' career, and his final games have been taken from him, which is unfortunate for him, unfortunate for this offensive line. And then Braden Jacobs, you talk about insult to injury. I think it was Chapel Fowler who posted the sequence, but you can see him celebrating. It's a big win. And we saw this in the Super Bowl where I think it was Dre Greenlaw of the 49ers just jumps up and lands the wrong way. And it's just, how does this happen? just a real spell of bad luck there. And you're right. They're not going to be worried about it against Furman, but against a South Carolina pass rush that has been one of the few bright spots for the Gamecocks this year, that's going to be a real challenge heading into Columbia in 2 weeks.
How does what happened Friday with Clemson Grayson and what happened Saturday with South Carolina's meltdown change your mind on the day after Black Friday contest that will happen?
Yeah, it's interesting. It feels like one team is heading in another direction in terms of momentum. I still think both teams are a mess. I don't think that my opinion on Clemson has necessarily shifted after Florida State and Louisville, because it wasn't necessarily one where I left going, man, Clemson really dominated. They secured that one. No doubt it took a lot for both of these results to go the way they did. But South Carolina, it'll be interesting to see how they respond to a game like that. I'll tell you all this. So we're in the car driving back to Clemson, and I see that it's 30-3 or whatever it was at halftime, and I'm in the back seat of the car of the TigerNet crew. So I go take a nap. And so I'm sleeping. I'm catching some Z's in the back. I'm tired, and I wake up, and the people in the front that are driving, they're laughing. Like, what's going on? Did I snore? Did I do something? They're like, no, South Carolina is down by 1, and I said a 4-letter word that can't be uttered on this station, and I was like, what? How did this happen? And so just a complete disaster in College Station for South Carolina. All the memes, you could use 28-3 jokes because I did. Certainly a lot to pull from, but a disastrous result where I went to the net into that nap thinking South Carolina's going to be fighting Clemson for a bowl game in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Nobody woke you up, Grayson? I mean, that's a monster game, a monster situation, and nobody says, hey, you've had 20 minutes, let's wake him up. Come on.
I think it's just they let me sleep. I probably sounded like I was dead asleep, probably a little bit of a snoring. I got a little bit of a cold, so probably a little bit stuffed up. But ultimately, I caught the end of it, which is all that matters.
So let's be real. Clemson cannot overlook Furman. I know that. I mean, it's a Power 4 team versus an FCS team, and Furman has struggled off and on this season. Some games they've looked pretty decent, some games they haven't, but Clemson has not looked great in any games. So the question is, I mean, how bad would the performance have to be for Furman still to be in this game, to be down a touchdown in the fourth quarter? Would it really surprise you if that was the case?
I think if we can't, I guess, what's your definition of if it's like 24-17 going into like the second half or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. Ooh. I mean, within arm's reach later than anyone expects them to be.
I remember the worst it's gotten in terms of an FCS opponent was when Clemson was tied, I think down 14-7 at Charleston Southern. When Klubnik threw that really awful pick 6 2 years ago, and that was just kind of the telltale sign that this season was going to be a disaster for Clemson. And they ended up finishing 9-4, which isn't terrible, but you could sort of see the cracks of the foundation. They're in a different spot, obviously, this year where everyone kind of already knows what they're going into, but it would take a lot, I still think. And just in terms of pure talent, this is one of those games where Clemson would have to step on a Lego, fall off a cliff, and do a lot of other different things for it to be that close in the fourth quarter or third quarter. I would be personally floored, and I'd go find Cole just to see the look on his face at the press box.
I'd be floored because I don't see it being close at all. Grayson, I think we touched on this a couple of weeks ago. Want to revisit it now because I was asked about it at some point this weekend. Clemson beats Furman, and then if they beat South Carolina, they'll have won a few games in a row. That changes things, right, for the offseason. Garrett Riley's safe all of a sudden, right?
No, I still think that changes are coming. You can't erase a 3-5 start after an off season of national championship expectations. I would say that despite no matter how this season ends, I still think that change is coming.
But Coach, we won 4 of 5.
Yes, they did. That's great. That's great. They also lost 5 before the month of November.
So Grayson, if you believe those who may or may not have had sources a few years ago, Shane Beamer really wanted Garrett Riley, and Clemson ended up getting him. And could you imagine a scenario where Garrett Riley leaves Clemson and Shane Beamer somehow hasn't been fired and can hire the guy that he wanted all along. I mean, how much does Garrett love Clemson to the point where he would not do that? Or is, he's just a coach for hire. He'll go wherever.
Man, wouldn't that be fascinating?
Yeah.
I think change on that side is coming, specifically with your coordinator, and it'll play out how it plays out. But if he goes to South Carolina, guys, I'm requesting to come onto this show immediately because that would be something else.
You'd be the first call we make.
No doubt.
Sweet.
Grayson, do we touch on the Clemson basketball program, or do we touch on your New England Patriots looking really good? Which one?
Well, you did bring me on here to talk Clemson, so the 9-2 record speaks for itself.
Look
so
at
let's
you.
talk some hoops.
Professional.
Yeah, pretty good start, right?
Yeah, I think the Georgetown game, it sort of reminds you of Boise State from last year, where it's a step up in competition. It's a new group.
Yeah.
But I felt like Clemson hung around. And that Georgetown team, let's keep in mind, they went on the road and beat Maryland by 10. It's an exhibition, but when you go scrimmage Kentucky, I think you're getting a good idea of what kind of team you are. And that was the worst exhibition loss Kentucky's had since they played the Soviet Union. So it's been a long time, which is no one else finds that stat fascinating but me. So I hope you guys do, because it's bothered me for weeks that no one's appreciated it. But so
Grayson,
so for Clemson, go ahead, Diesel.
No, I want to let you finish what you're saying.
Yeah, so I think it's a team that's young. There's a lot of potential. We're going to see how they bounce back tonight at 9 o'clock against North Alabama. So I will be taking a nap after this to stay awake. But it's a group that I think, in terms of where I'd be concerned, I think Dylan Hunter's been in a slump offensively. It looks like he hasn't been able to kind of find his juice in terms of his shot creation. I think Clemson needs a little bit more from him. But this freshman talent, guys, Zach Foster, he may pull some shots that would have Brad Brownell, like, he'd take him behind the barn, essentially, if he had missed them. But what a player. And Clemson's got some dudes. Again, Brownell has been a master in the portal, and I think this team's a little bit better than I thought.
Grayson, this is not my next question. It's just a short one. Do you have any bourbon in the house?
I don't have any bourbon.
Well, you'll have to run out and get some, or I can Instacart you everything. Hot toddies will change your life when you've got a cold. I'm telling you. What do you make of these 3 new commits that are now supposedly going to be heading to Clemson? Anything could happen. Will Stevens, Amari James, and Harris Reynolds, 2 4-stars and a currently unrated guy. That's a pretty good haul for Brad Brownell.
Yeah, I think 3 is the magic number when it comes to those recruiting classes, and I'm a big fan of Stevens, the center, that kind of post game that Brownell likes to involve with this offense. He hasn't had a true center this year, and Stevens is still a young kid, so we can grow an inch or 2 more and add some size. But you have sort of a foundation here where guys like Zach Foster, Chase Thompson, a little bit more physically ready in terms of their development than maybe some other freshman classes in years past. Remember that 24 one? Nobody really played at all outside Asa Thomas in garbage time. So it's a very different look. And so I think Brownell's attacked that, where he's getting kids who can play immediately out of maybe a need, or just that Clemson's attracting a different type of prospect now. And it's reflected in these first 4 games with that freshman class. Guys like Zach Foster, Chase Thompson, Ace Buckner, who is a redshirt freshman, but still a freshman nonetheless. So Brownell's been on a heater on the recruiting trail, getting the guys he needs, and they've been fits.
Grayson, when you talk about a lot of newness with this Clemson basketball team, is the forward and R.J. Godfrey, I think 3 points against Georgetown. Is that kind of where we are with him in terms of what his offensive production should be? Not a lot of aggressiveness from him in that game. Do you feel like he's somebody that needs to be more aggressive with his size, or is he more just in there for his role defensively?
I will add, against Georgetown, he did have 2 early fouls, so he had to sit the whole first half. So there's going to be that aspect going against him. So I think for Godfrey, his target's always going to probably be that 8 to 10 range, and just be kind of your defensive anchor. I do think someone like Carter Welling has come out alive, and that was against Georgetown, 14 points from him. Jake Walleen, Nick Davidson, your offense is going to flow from piece to piece. I don't think it'll be like last year where you kind of expected Chase Hunter to be the head of the snake offensively. I think it's going to change hands on a nightly basis. And for this group, I think that's kind of how Brownell likes to play it. It's going to be a deep team. It's going to be a selfless team. They pass the ball really well. little bit sloppy against Georgetown, but I think that also comes with figuring it out against stiffer competition. So he's told us in the beginning of the year that November will tell a lot about this team, and I think we learned a lot even in a loss.
Grayson, we appreciate you gutting it out, even though you're not feeling great. You had your Jordan flu game performance, and we appreciate you.
Guys, I think I could have a 104 fever, and I'd still come on the show.
You're
from
the
a
man.
hospital bed.
You're the man.
Thanks,
Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com. The flu game, or the I like the reveal on The Last Dance that kind of revealed that it had more to do with bad pizza.
Oh,
Why is that not talked about more?
Old pizza.
The old pizza delivery, man.
Yeah.
I still love that story, man. That's one of the craziest sports stories ever.
I'm always a fan of subterfuge in big time sporting events.
Yeah.
When we come back, let's take a quick look at our latest Upset Picks Challenge standings. One Tolo we don't want to see inside the top 10 is inside the top 10. We'll get into it next.
844 Fan Phone. This is Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson on the Fan Upstate.
How about those Navy midshipmen, Cole, getting it done over USF? I had in the back of my mind that one of these weeks USF was going to trip up a little bit. The G5 race to the playoff can never just be simple. There's never one team that's just far and away better than everybody else in the G5. So there's always chaos right down to the very last week. Of course, Dan B denoting that because he's a Navy guy himself. Dan B denoting all the Tolos that picked Navy.
Shout out to John Dog.
With double thumbs up on the newest upset picks ranking standings. They're up on our Facebook and our Twitter page. Search for the Fan Upstate. You're going to find it. John Dog moves up to tied for 11th place. Corn Chip also picked Navy. He's got 34. Bubba Brooks. What's up, Bubba Brooks? He's got 28 points. Play-by-play JB, Steve Squared, Gamecocks Lee, and Gert from Greer all picked that game. That was the biggest hit of the weekend, was that one for 9.5 points. Our leader's still Dave Mosley, and he is 18 points ahead of second place. So USC, Justin, I know you want to you want to protect your points. You want to go for some fairly easy upsets at this point. But, man, if you want to try to beat Dave Mosley, you're going to have to go nuts with like a 20-point upset. That's your only shot.
And you know what? I told Smitty I'm going to clip it, and I'm going to have it ready for you. And you know what? Who did
Smitty take?
No. I forget. I don't know what he took, but what did I tell him? On air Friday, I said, Smitty, I'm telling you, do what I do and take my pick. And all the Tolos were making fun of me and said that my pick wasn't going to hit.
You took Virginia over Wake.
Virginia. I told you, Tolos, Virginia was too good of a team to lose 2 games in a row. And finally, Diesel, I think that's only the 3rd time this season I've hit.
Your 3rd hit? I got my 3rd hit, too.
You hit?
Yeah.
And you hit with?
I hit with Arizona over Cincinnati. I am still on the 5th column, but I'm at the tippy top of the 5th column. So
Is that the far right?
Yeah.
Am I on the 4th column now?
You're on the 4th column. Cole, you at the moment have 16 points. That has you tied for 71st place. I have 8 points, tied for 95th. We have 122 Tolos on the board with points. Tolos, go check out your scores. Congratulations to everybody that hit. Man, it would have been a wild weekend if South Carolina had hit. They were that close, obviously.
And let me tell you this. Smitty
a lot of Tolos picked that one.
They did, and I figured they would with it being, South Carolina. But Smitty better be glad that I won't be on the show this Friday because I'll be in Columbia getting ready for the Dutch Fork, headed down there for Dutch Fork Burns. But let me tell you, Diesel, if I was on the show Friday, I'd let Smitty have it. I'd brag, I'd boast, I'd holler, I'd yell. He better be glad. I'm telling you, I told him. I said, take Virginia.
You ought to be doing a show from an Ingles in the Columbia area.
I don't know if there are
on
Ingles
Saturday. There's got to be one down there somewhere, right?
I don't know.
Tolos, help us out.
I don't know how far Ingles goes down. That's a good question.
So you're gonna be there Friday night. I'm gonna be there Saturday afternoon for Coastal when Coastal upsets South Carolina.
Oh my God, I would die.
I will be there. I'm there.
Can you imagine if that were to happen? You would be there to see the.
If that happens, do you think Shane Beamer even shows up for his post-game press conference? Do you not asking will he be fired before the press conference, but will he even show his face if they lose?
Hey guys, sorry, there will be no post-game press conference because Shane Beamer has been fired. I'll tell you this,
because he's too embarrassed to come.
Diesel, it'd be wild if that were to happen, and I mean wild because Coastal's they're getting better, but still, that would be wild. Tolos, it's time to overreact. That's what we do on Monday. I've got a couple of overreactions, and we want to hear from you as well. 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-326-3663. Let's load the phone lines up on this Overreaction Monday. That's next. Well, there's a lot, and I mean a lot of job openings across the nation in college football when it comes to head coaches, and I'm sure there will be even more assistants looking for a job, Diesel. And I am leading off Overreaction Monday with a pretty big overreaction when it comes to these head coaches who are doing really well and some openings. Want to hear from you, Tolos, at 844-326-3663. What is your best sports overreaction? Let's see what Tolo can give the best overreaction today. I'm going to start it off and say, I think UCLA, Diesel, the Bruins, right, who at one time were a proud football program. They have not been lately. Newsflash. I don't know if you realize that or not. They've been pretty bad, right? My first overreaction on this Monday is that UCLA should pick up the phone and call Bob Chesney to see if he will become their next head football coach. Young offensive-minded guy with an offensive coordinator on staff at UCLA who is already doing really well, right? We've seen UCLA make strides. I think the job that Bob Chesney has done at James Madison has been incredible. And the bad part is, with James Madison, you get good coaches, you don't keep them for long, right? Yeah. Because they become the next up-and-coming guy. Am I crazy for thinking that a school like UCLA with plenty of resources should call Bob Chesney?
No, you're not crazy.
What's the name?
He was a first-year head coach last year at James Madison, had to build his roster out of a lot of transfers, and UCLA is always going to be in that position, right? UCLA, for better or worse, even though they're a Big Ten member, are going to be a stepping stone program. Kids are going to come out to UCLA because they want to play in the sunshine, they want to play in the big city, and then poof, as soon as they have a good year, they're off somewhere else in the Big Ten, or they're off to an SEC school. UCLA will always be in that position. You got to find somebody who has a proven track record of success. And now 2 years in a row, Bob Chesney has built a roster of heavily filled with transfers, and he's winning. And that is a really, really hard thing to do.
So imagine if you're like the UCLA AD and you say, look, we've got Jerry Neuheisel on staff. Pretty good OC, right? He was the tight ends coach the 2 seasons prior. You've got an interim. We know things didn't go well to start the season. What if you bring in a guy like Bob Chesney and say, okay, now all of a sudden we can build for the future, to your point, and use some portal guys, and then you go get 6 to 10 guys out of the portal that immediately contribute. In this world, like, I'm not throwing it out there that UCLA couldn't be good next year. They've got talent. They're already recruiting good ball players, but I don't know, man. I just feel like UCLA is just the right hire away from being a really good program again. I really do.
If you need Neuheisel to get some more experience before anybody's willing to give him a head coaching job, and for God's sakes, as many schools have locked up their head coaches who are not going anywhere, and as many needy schools as are out there, feels like somebody might get a little nuts and take a flyer on Neuheisel, even though he's not ready. And I wouldn't want Neuheisel to take that leap this early. I would say, if I'm UCLA's athletic director, say, hey, we really like you here, man. We want to help you build your career and take that next step for a job, maybe a year from now, maybe 2 years from now. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to make you the OC. We're going to throw another $500,000 at you, or $1 million. I don't know how much he's making. But we're going to bring in Bob Chesney to be your head coach. He's going to help mentor you along. And I promise you, if you have the kind of success, we will champion you for other jobs.
We need to get in touch. I think this is a good idea. I think this has legs. Let's me and you campaign with UCLA. All right. Let me throw a wild one at you. We can send emails. Do you know, good friend of the show who we've had on and calls the show a lot, our good friend, hope he's listening, Mustin Kapasi.
Yep.
His son is the associate AD at UCLA. I'm telling you, let's get it. Let's throw that out there.
Just text him. Just float the idea down his river.
Bob Chesney would be a really good hire, in our opinion. And Diesel and I are starting to make hires now.
You will not hear me argue. Yeah, by the way, I called James Franklin of Virginia Tech 2 weeks ago.
You did.
You will not find it hard to get me to suggest that James Madison should try again with another head coach. I don't know what's going on up there. They just have an AD that is smart, that knows what he's doing, that knows how to hire ADs and coaches. Every single one of them in a row.
That's right.
It's really hard for any school, even if you've got all the money in the world, to keep hiring great coach after great coach after great coach. But somehow James Madison,
they do it, man.
Even though they keep losing guys, they keep doing it.
Let's go to the phone lines, 844-326-3663. Which Tolo is, number one, going to have the best overreaction today? And number two, which Tolo is going to pick up and call the show with their overreaction that's a long-time Tolo, but not an often caller? You know, what do they say? Hey, long-time listener, first-time caller. We need one or two of those today. Let's get some new Tolos on board with Overreaction Monday. Some overreactions coming in on the text line already. The Hub City Spartanburgers text line about the Chiefs. We'll get to that. But leading off is Dewey. I don't know if Dewey's ever hit leadoff before, but Dewey, what's your overreaction on this Overreaction Monday?
Oh, actually, we should pack up Shane Beamer and send him to UCLA or James Madison or Clinton High School. that was a complete and utter travesty, embarrassment, and I don't even got words for it. All I gotta say is what the writing was on the wall that this thing was going to go north or go south quickly. You go back to the first half. The last couple minutes of the first half, if you recall, I guess after the other interception they got, they had a chance to put another touchdown on the board, but instead they dilly-dallied, wasted about a minute and a half, got it all the way down to the final seconds, and just settled for a field goal. I mean, who does that?
Well, you take the points when there's points on the field, you got to take them.
They already thought they had the game won, apparently. But then you saw Shane Beamer doing jumping Jackson cartwheels and I don't know, giving the middle finger or whatever he was doing. That's okay to be excited, but these people, they went into the locker room and said, "Oh, there it is! Oh, there it is!" They had a block party or whatever, while Texas A&M's coach probably gave them the biggest butt whooping of their lifetime because he knew his job was on the line too. They played like their jobs were on the line. Texas A&M, totally different team. It was ridiculous. It was sad, and how you get sacked 4 times in first, second, third, and fourth down.
Dewey,
how did that happen?
Have you called up South Carolina yet and pledged a couple dollars towards the Shane Beamer buyout fund?
I should. Yeah, he owes me a TV. I threw my TV out the window.
What's your name?
Dewey.
I punched my neighbor in the face, and I threw my mistress out the door too. I was so angry.
Dear Lord.
Dewey, all right, Dewey.
Thanks,
Dewey.
That's
enough. Thanks for the call. You know, speaking of going north and south, it always goes south when Dewey calls, but it goes north when our next caller calls in because everybody loves our next caller. He talks in all caps. It's Tom from Somerville.
Well, Dewey was going north and south, and I was going east and west, trying to figure out how in the bleep do you blow a 27-point lead? I don't care who you're playing. I don't care if you're playing the Dick Buckus Chicago Bears. I don't care if you were playing the Clinton High School JV team. If you
what's the shade with Clinton today?
A 27-point second half lead at any level of football, you do not deserve to be coaching that said football team anymore. I don't care if you're 10-0 or 3-7. If you blow a 27-point second half lead and you act like you did at halftime, you do not deserve to be the head coach any longer. But you know what's crazy is watching that game, you knew it was coming. I grabbed Texas A&M money line at halftime, and it made my afternoon. As mad as I was, anybody who's watched this football team all year knew that collapse was coming, and sure enough, it came.
What was the odds on that? Plus what?
It was like, well, A&M had cut it to 30-10. It wasn't right at halftime. It was right after halftime. They cut it to 30-10, and I think it was like plus 440 or somewhere around there.
Wow.
So
how much did you win on that, Tom?
like $70 or $80. I didn't put much on it.
Hey, that's good. Though. So, Tom, when the magic or the number one question is, when in your mind will Shane Beamer actually be fired?
Well, that's the tricky part. Is the only way I think he does, in fact, get fired is if they lose to Coastal this week. If they beat Coastal, I think he's back. But y'all were just talking about Bob Chesney. Like, I would love Bob Chesney to be the head coach at South Carolina. Like, I would absolutely love that. I think he's one of the most slept-on coaches in the game.
Yeah.
And, you know, Penn State would be stupid not to hire him. They would be absolutely stupid not to hire Bob Chesney.
That's a good point, too. That's a good
call.
point. Thanks,
call,
Tom. Appreciate you as always.
Yeah.
I do. I think the Bob Chesney sweepstakes should be a lot higher than they are. I really do. Let's keep it going, Diesel. Eric Hines wants to overreact. What's up, Eric?
My overreaction is with you two, because you guys need to suck it up and pull a double and get on the morning time slot, because I am inconvenienced at the moment with listening to Maggie and Perloff in the morning. Maggie is a Buffalo Bill loving lady from New York, and Perloff, that's the only saving grace. Perloff is an Eagles fan, but he's a pushover Eagles fan, and he lets her bully him around. So I need you two to suck it up and, you know, take one for the team and go to days for a little bit.
You don't let Mrs. Eric Hines slap you around a little bit, Eric?
Only in a certain time of evening.
Sometimes it's fun, you know.
Yes, it is.
Eric, I will tell you this. I will give you props on something. I thought the Lions last night, and what was a dreadful game to watch, by the way. I thought the Lions last night would be more of a challenge, but I just think ultimately my biggest takeaway, and I'll give you props, I think the Eagles have the best LOS in the NFL up front line of scrimmage. Look, you have a lot of talent, but ultimately on that offensive line and defensive line, that's why the Eagles are so good.
Yeah, their defense is carrying them the last couple weeks here, but they need to get something figured out on offense. I think, you know, the lineman hurt right now doesn't help many.
Yeah. A.J. Brown happy?
Oh, absolutely not. But what do you do?
Thanks for the call, Eric.
Thanks, Eric.
Appreciate you, man. Call back anytime, 844-326-3663. Madcraft wanting to overreact, and I think that's Madcraft's middle name, Diesel. Mad Overreact Craft. Madcraft, do you have an overreaction?
So I do. That about went off the rails on that last call. Y'all was talking about getting a little aggressive.
No, not y'all. Diesel.
It's not aggressive if you have a smile on your face while it's happening.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you want it, you know. But
anyways,
my overreaction right here is, Diesel, I may be late to this party, okay, and maybe this is something that everybody here knows about. I didn't know about. How come you didn't tell us that you were an actor?
What do you mean? I have a couple of credits. I have a couple of TV commercials for MTC Federal.
You sure do.
Under my belt.
You sure do.
I also have a movie.
Oh,
I don't think it was ever actually released, but it's a movie where I was out on a date with Paige from the Rise Guys morning show, and I dipped out on our date to go hook up with another girl.
Wow.
And she hooks up with another guy, and
Wow.
it's a romantic comedy that their relationship flourishes.
Where is this segment gone?
You know, I don't know, but I just want y'all to know that the other night, it was either last night or Saturday night, I was watching local programming, and I had to do a triple take. I even took photos. I said, "Who is that, Diesel?" Diesel was on my TV.
Well, you've made it. You've made it.
Yeah, I'm on local TV.
That's big money, man.
Yeah.
That's why he's so
big
rich.
money.
That's why I'm still
Hey,
working.
that's
here.
Matt Kraft, do you have an overreaction?
That was my overreaction. Diesel is a movie star. He's a big screen.
Yeah, but
movie player.
that means that he's not a good actor because you overreact by saying something that's not like you don't really know if you mean it or not.
Do you think I have what it takes to be an action star, or am I more suited for comedy?
You're probably more suited for comedy, but maybe you can maybe romantics. Maybe that's your thing.
Wow,
I've been in one or two.
Wow.
Thanks, Matt Kraft.
Great call, Matt Kraft.
Appreciate
really
you.
good overreaction. There.
My overreaction for this Monday, Cole, is that Dow Loggins is going to get App State's athletic director fired.
Whoa.
Like, he is going to get fired.
Wait, the football coach is going to get the AD fired?
Yeah. His name is Doug Gillen. Doug Gillen hired Eli Drinkwitz, so he hit on that one.
Yeah, he did.
But he has failed miserably on 2 coaching hires in a row because Dow Loggins, I don't think, is going to be the head coach in 2027. Okay. 2025 has been an absolute disaster.
Get one more year.
2026, I don't know if it's going to get any better. I don't think this whole push, this whole trend towards we got to get more NFL guys on our roster, coaching staff.
Why?
We got to do the NFL thing. I don't think it works. I don't think kids that are going to be playing at G5s give a rip about that. I mean, yeah, sure, they all want to go off to the NFL. But if you bring in a great young player and you get him ready for the NFL, you're just getting him ready to go off to South Carolina or Auburn or to wherever. You're just getting that guy ready for another opportunity at another school. Yeah. I don't want that to be the model of the G5 player. Look, am I saying that I wish the Dabo Swinney method still worked at the G5 level? Yeah, I wish it worked. But it doesn't. It is a you get 1 year, you bring in 60 new guys, and you hope that they gel really, really quickly. And occasionally you're going to hit pay dirt and find magic, but most times you're not. But Dow Loggins, I didn't understand the hire from day number one. He's not an excitable guy. His play calling has never really been all that interesting or all that creative. So why do you bring him in as a head coach just because he's had some time, coaching guys in the NFL? I don't understand how that's relevant to the G5 level of football.
No, I don't think that's bad. I think I'm with you on the NFL stuff. Like, we thought Belichick and, that whole deal was cute, right? We thought that was going to work. I mean, we talked about it for an entire summer, even at ACC kickoff. It wasn't cute. It didn't work. It's become a mess, right? So I'm with you. Look, it's a different game. It's a completely different sport. So the NFL, it's important. I mean, Dabo just hired an NFL guy to be involved in the development, the recruiting, the player, the personnel aspect. So,
but a majority, Clemson is putting probably 5-6 guys in the NFL just about every year. So that makes sense at a Clemson.
Yeah.
I don't think it makes sense at a G5.
Well, it's not working at North Carolina either, though. So I just don't know that. Again, I want to have somebody who knows how to adapt and win in this game. That's the NFL stuff. Like, if I'm an AD, it's not really top of mind for me. I think that's what's most interesting. I'll say this. My last overreaction before we run is if South Carolina Diesel finishes 4-8, which would be a win over Coastal Carolina, right? And a loss to Clemson next Saturday at noon in Columbia. I think if they finish 4-8, the entire Shane Beamer experiment, when you look at his entire tenure, 2025 will turn out to prove that the Beamer experiment was a failure and that Shane Beamer was a bad hire. That's my overreaction. I told you an hour and a half ago that I was defending Beamer as long as I could. I was holding out as long as I could when it comes to defending Shane Beamer. But if he goes 4-8, you look at what he's done or hasn't done in his career leading the Gamecocks, I think the 4-8 would be the exclamation point, Diesel, that his career at South Carolina was a failure and that it was a bad hire on the part of South Carolina.
If you're Shane Beamer, and I know he's a special teams guy, do you maybe, make one of those strategic step backs and learn to be an OC?
Well, I mean, I don't think it hurts if you could get the opportunity. I don't know what opportunities may come up. It might be a situation where he can't be picky and choosy. He just has to take the opportunity, right? Sure. Whether it's OC, DC, popcorn popper, hot chocolate maker, whatever it is.
The question is, like, if he gets hired, let's say Georgia Southern, do you think Shane Beamer and his tenure at South Carolina is anything that recruits who are going to be choosing Georgia Southern are going to be interested in?
I think if it translates to being able to get the top guys like with $1, to answer that's a question that we could spend 30 minutes on. Yeah. You're asking if Shane Beamer being at South Carolina would help him in the future. I think ultimately yes, because of his connections and his recruit. Like Shane Beamer has been on the recruiting trail in the South since 2010. Is that right? So I mean, he's been recruiting for a long, long time in this area. So I think it would help, but ultimately I just don't know, man. I don't see how this thing ends well.
When we come back, Cole, we haven't had a chance to get to this. I know it's a couple of days old here, but an NFL memo went out that is really damaging to the prospect of those of you who like to prop bet. What happened? What was in the memo? We'll discuss it all next.
That's 844-FAN-PHONE. This is Wire to Wire with Cole, Bryson, and Diesel on the Fan Upstate.
You know, every time you turn on a radio station, open up a website, go to a sports information page, you're just bombarded constantly with new betting sites. They are everywhere, Cole. It's like the .com of the day, sports betting sites. But this is wild. Over the weekend, and I guess it was technically more like Thursday, Friday of last week, the NFL sent out a memo to chief executives, club presidents, club counsel, and the heads of player engagement going pretty hard after prop betting and how it's gotten out of control. Look, I know that I did some endorsements for a sports betting site. You're doing some investment in endorsements for sports betting sites here, Cole. But it feels like when the NFL has to come out and say there's certain types of prop bets that aren't good and we should figure out ways around them or to cut them, maybe prop bets as a whole are going to be phased out of some of the biggest ways that someone can bet.
You know, I find this news, number one, huge, fascinating, right? But number two, the NFL, like in the timing of all of this memo that was sent out right on the heels of this NBA scandal that happened, you know, just a few weeks ago, right? And the NFL, let's call it like it is. The NFL, Diesel, is king. I mean, just king. Ratings, everything. Nothing touches the NFL. It doesn't matter what it is. And for the NFL to, in my opinion, kind of be like, I'm not saying like out in front of it because things have happened already, you know, with prop bets and within the NFL, that they're not without blemish. But I think the best thing they could do in their position is, per se, get out in front of it, knowing that this is only going to get worse. We've talked about it many times being such a slippery slope. Now, the ramifications this would have on these books, what would that be?
You know as well as I do that once people get a taste for something, and then it is effectively outlawed, they will find a way to go do it, right? It's going to push those things towards illegal sites all over again. But I also know that if you give law-abiding citizens a legal way to do something, most of the time, most of them will pursue the legal method of doing it. You know, that's one of the reasons why they say, like, hey, you should legalize marijuana in certain states, because people who were buying it illegally from some drug dealer they're more likely to go buy it from the legal place. People want to be above the law and operating.
Outstanding weed addict citizens.
Hey, you can't get addicted to marijuana. That is medical truth. You can't get addicted to it.
I beg to differ.
Well, have you been addicted to it?
I can't tell you. I'm kidding.
Okay.
I'm kidding.
But the point is, if you give somebody a legal way to do something, most people are going to do it the legal way. And some people, certainly, if you criminalize prop betting or remove it from these apps and these services, they're going to find a way to go do it anyway. They're going to go find some offshore book that allows them to do it. You know, I had a buddy tell me last weekend that he has found a way to legally bet on outcomes of games here in the state of South Carolina. And that's been illegal. You know, you're not allowed to bet on outcomes of games, yet he has found a way, some website, and I won't name it, he has found a way to be able to do it. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily in the straightforward, here's the odds on this game, on this team to win, here's the odds on that team to win. You got to do it just a little bit differently. However, you're still betting money legally on the outcome of a game.
Yeah.
And people will find a way around it. So here's the memo from the NFL. Subject line, NFL sports betting update. We're not going to read the whole thing, but in formulating policies to address the legalization of sports betting, our highest priority has been protecting the integrity of the game, something that people have been questioning for a while now, and they're questioning more and more and more in other sports. In recent weeks, federal law enforcement has brought serious criminal charges alleging illegal behavior in the context of so-called prop bets, wagers largely entirely dependent on the actions of a single player. From the earliest days of legal sports betting, we have recognized the particular risks associated with prop bets and the corrosive effect they have on fan perceptions, league reputation, and the safety of players, clubs, staff, and game officials. It's almost like they were telling you this right from the very beginning, Roger. And now that you're seeing, oh man, this really is serious, and we could have our, feet to the fire, our what's in a vice. Now they're realizing, oh crap, this really is bad, and we really do need to do something about this.
Well, I think that, like, going back to what I said a minute ago, you can't undo it. And kind of to what you said, like, even if you do make it illegal, Diesel, people are still going to find a way. But, like, my whole thing is with any of this prop bet stuff that we've talked about, any of these prop bet conversations with the NFL or the NBA, I do think, and as much as it's going to have ramifications that I talked about a minute ago for the books and everybody involved, I do think the only way to save face for your league is to absolutely shut it down. Like, there's just no way with sports gambling that you can allow this but not allow this. You just can't. So you have to completely do what the NFL is doing. And I think, look, there have been a million things to criticize the NFL on, but I think this is one of the good ones.
So they're not necessarily pushing to eliminate prop bets, even though, they are, again, they're recognizing that prop bets do have certain consequences and not all of them are great. They are attempting to prohibit certain categories of prop bets, including.
So it's not like full sale. Okay.
Right. They're not going to try to eliminate the Bryce Young over under 181 yards passing.
I got you.
What they're trying to eliminate, or they're trying to get out in front of to make sure these don't become, playable on these big sites. There's 4 different categories. Inherently objectionable. These are markets or bets that are inherently or designed to be derogatory or inflammatory or otherwise based on subject matter against public policy, i.e. player injuries, fan safety, or misconduct. I guess that would be we don't want to let players wager on how many injuries are going to happen in a game. So that's fine. I get it. Number 2, officiating related. So markets or bets based on officials or officiating, e.g. officiating assignments, penalties, or replays. So you can't bet the over-under on how many times they're going to stop the game for a replay. You can't bet the over-under on who is going to officiate certain games. I guess people, like anything, people will find a way to wager on just about anything. They wager on what color the Gatorade is that's going to be poured out on the winning coach.
And the over-under on the national anthem. I mean, that's one of my favorite things in the world is the over-under on the national anthem in the Super Bowl, right?
Next up, next category, determinable by one person in one play. Based on outcomes, 100% determinable by one person in one play, e.g. a kicker to miss a field goal attempt, a quarterback's first pass to be incomplete, etc. I've seen a few of those. I'm sure you have as well, available on these apps. You can bet whether or not, somebody's first pass is going to be complete, their first catch, their first target is going to be a completed pass. And then the last category is predetermined outcomes directly related to on-field competition. E.g., will the quarterback start this week? Will team's first play from scrimmage be a run or a pass? You cannot bet on those certain things, or at least the NFL is trying to get out in front of and outlaw those types of bets.
Let me ask you this, though. Going back to what I said, I want to know, when you just read off all of those different categories, and this probably isn't listed in there, maybe it is, how does it benefit the NFL to ban some but not all? Like, that's my biggest thing. Like, okay, I can't bet on.
Can't. That's the problem.
Yeah, but Diesel, if I can't eat that donut, but there's an apple fritter, I'll just eat the apple fritter. Like, it doesn't. If I can't gamble on this, but I'll just gamble. Like, if I love sweets, I'm gonna. You know what I mean? Like, it's not gonna deter. Who? That's my point. Who is it gonna deter?
Well, I think it's that they don't want to let the categories that you can bet on continue to spiral out of control to the point where it's negative towards the game. Right? They would essentially they would rather you gamble and wager on the positive outcomes and positive situations in games, Like it's positive that a guy will go over, 87 yards rushing.
It just makes you laugh, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That we're banning. So, and I do get it.
But you also know, you're right. They can't put this toothpaste back in the tube.
Right.
There is so much money that's coming from these gambling websites and coming from these gambling partnerships. You turn on a game, there's 25 different ads for different gambling sites. They won't give that money away, because if the NFL and its shareholders, these teams' shareholders, are like, hey, where'd that $2.5 billion go?
Correct.
That you guys were making last year from all these prop bets? Where did that go? Roger Goodell's not going to say, oh, we just gave it all back. We just said, no thanks. We don't need it. We're already making enough money.
I wonder how many other sports leagues follow suit.
You
know what I mean? Because the NBA, like the NBA should start. I mean, shouldn't the NBA be the one that's already making these kind of changes, you would think, with I know you can't do everything at once, but they're the ones in the hot water here. I mean, they just had maybe the biggest gambling saga ever.
Maybe if the push were towards team-based prop bets, you could probably eliminate the individual player prop bets. Over under Travis Kelce receiving 36.5 yards tonight, right? That inherently leads to the possibility of a fan or a bettor being upset and then getting mad and getting in Travis Kelce's inbox and threatening Taylor Swift, which, Swifties are not going to let that go over very well. So maybe the idea needs to be, we're going to allow you to prop bet on team statistics, but not player statistics.
Makes sense. No, I get it. It's just part of it. But again, it's it still does feel like, to your toothpaste and a tube illustration, it does feel like you're trying to put a little bit of that toothpaste back in. Or it feels like, let me tell you what I did. I bought new bed sheets, pillows, comforters the other day. Came in, delivered to my house in a box, and I opened – the pillow was in a package the size of like just a regular old package. I opened the pillow. Do you know what happened when you opened the pillow?
Poof.
Poof! Oh, it's unbelievable. It is unbelievable. It's like putting the pillow back in the packaging, right?
You can't do it.
Which, by the way, like, I guess I'm just a little
vacuum
kid.
seal, man.
It's fascinating. It really is. It's like, how does that happen?
You're 28?
29.
You may not remember these. When I was a kid, and people who are older than me probably remember these.
Horse and buggy?
Yeah, you could get these little fake pills at a grocery store. They'd be hanging from the like cereal aisle shelves, and you'd put it in water, and the outer casing would dissolve.
Yeah, I love those.
It would be like a little spongy dinosaur.
Dinosaurs. I love those.
They still make those?
I do not know. I do not. That's a great question. Maybe a Tolo. I do know what you're talking about, though. Those were pretty legit, I must say. Speaking of pretty legit, Diesel, our fan upstate player of the week, Kendaris Peanut, that's what he goes by, Bailey of Gaffney High School. We talked to him. Actually, no, I caught up with him yesterday evening, and he is our player of the week. We have that interview next.
From first snap to final whistle, Diesel and Cole Bryson have you covered on Wire to Wire on the Fan Upstate.
I'm Chuck.
Tolos, it's Diesel. I want to tell you about my friends over at QC Kinetics. They have made their way into the upstate, and they are just helping people right here find that relief from joint pain. Whether you've got old sports injuries, maybe you hurt your knee playing football back in the day, or maybe whenever you swing a golf club and the club makes contact with the ball, you feel that tennis elbow flare up. That is exactly what QC Kinetics is designed.
Player of the Week for round 2 of the South Carolina High School League playoffs. Gaffney High School, Mr. Do-It-All, Kendaris Peanut Bailey. Peanut, how are you, man?
I'm doing good.
Appreciate you hopping on with me for a few minutes, man. Congratulations, number 1, on the win at Greenwood Friday, and then congratulations, number 2, on being named the Fan Upstate Player of the Week. Let's talk about that game Friday, Kendaris, at Greenwood. Let me ask you this. You guys on the road, a lot of people were picking Greenwood to win that game. Did you guys kind of go into that game with a little bit of a chip on your shoulder, underdog mentality?
Yes, sir. We just went in the game thinking, like, execute the plan and just go out there and play hard every quarter.
Do you as a player, I mean, you're a junior for the Gaffney Indians. Do you like that when teams are maybe thinking that you're the underdog, or people in the media or maybe thinking that Gaffney's the underdog, that y'all shouldn't win a game? Does that kind of motivate you a little bit?
Yes, sir, because we got to prove them wrong.
What's your message to those who have picked against you?
Just stay on that side. Stay on the other side.
Kendaris Bailey is who we're talking to. He's the Fan Upstate Player of the Week for round 2 of the South Carolina High School League playoffs because of his big performance on Friday night. Kendaris, you played both ways. Donnie Littlejohn told me on Saturday on our Saturday morning scramble show that it was kind of not a secret, but their idea to keep you more on the defensive side for the regular season, but when the playoffs come around, to have you running the rock. Was that kind of the plan all along, or do you have to sometimes say, hey, guys, let me run the rock a little bit too?
Nah, I figured it was kind of the plan all along. They wanted to keep me healthy throughout the season so I could play during the regular season, and they say it's all or nothing during the playoffs, so they said they were going to give me the ball a lot.
Yeah, I bet you love that, getting the ball a lot, whether it's offense or defense. Which do you prefer, Peanut, offense, defense?
I'm gonna execute it wherever I'm in on the field. So wherever they need me, I'm there.
Can you kick too?
Nah, but I can try.
I like that. We're talking to Peanut Bailey, Fan Upstate Player of the Week of Gaffney High School. Let's start on the defensive side of things, Peanut, and then we'll get over to the offense. Defensively, Friday night, you were going against a really good player for Greenwood, quarterback Tristan Lewis, who's committed to South Carolina. Talk about the game plan, the preparation throughout the week last week of the defense's game plan to try to stop him, and then how that was executed on Friday.
We were just told to do our assignments and keep the ball out of his hand.
Now, did you look at him as more of a run threat? Because he had a couple of turnovers through the air Friday too, right?
Yes, sir. He was more of a run threat than a pass threat, if you ask me.
Yeah. Now, when you talk about a running quarterback like him, what's your assignment? When you're at the linebacker position, how do you play a guy like that who does run the football?
I just take shots and help my team there to help me if I miss. Like,
is that downhill, Peanut? I mean, do you all play? Do you play downhill most of the time when you have a guy like that you're trying to bring down?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then let me ask you this question. On the practice side of things, when you are practicing during the week against your quarterback, Banks Boughton, was there anything that you saw in practice that you saw Banks Boughton do? Because he's kind of a running quarterback as well. He's a threat with his legs. He can throw it, obviously, but did practicing against Banks help you at all in preparation for Tristan Lewis?
Yes, sir.
In what way?
Because he good on his feet. Like, he gonna make you miss, so you gotta lock in when he's coming towards you, because he's gonna try anything you can to make you miss. So
I got you. Peanut, how would you say your game's gotten better from the beginning of the season to now?
I just got better at doing my assignments and being where I'm supposed to be.
Now, when you talk about playing defense, going against the run game versus going against the pass, do you feel like you have strengths and weaknesses in both areas when defending the pass versus defending the run? Talk us through kind of where your strengths are and where you want to get better at.
I think my strengths are the run game, because I'm pretty strong. I can take a lick and I can give a lick, but I feel like I ain't really too good on my feet in the pass game, so it's kind of shaky here and there sometimes. So I try to get better at that throughout the week and stuff.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this, Peanut, from a linebacker perspective, are you kind of locked in on wherever the ball is? Do you focus on a certain player based on who you're playing? What goes through the game plan and I guess the execution in terms of the guy that you're following, the guy that you're honing in on Friday night?
I never really got a specific player I'm following. I just see ball, get ball.
Gotcha. Is that what's coached? Just kind of go after the ball a little bit?
Yes, sir.
That's awesome. Peanut Bailey, on the offensive side of things, talk us through what it's like to play on the offensive side. We just talked about a minute ago how, the Gaffney coaching staff kind of holding that in a way for the postseason. When you come in on offense, you obviously very tough to bring down. You had a big, a 50-plus yarder somewhere around there Friday night. Talk us through that big running play and what you saw to make that run turn into it was a 50-yard gain, I believe?
I'll just say if they ain't coming hard and they don't want to hit, keep moving your feet.
Yeah. What's it like to get back there with Josiah Hill, the running back who's playing, most of the snaps during the regular season? To get back there and kind of share the rock with him, what's that mean in terms of how you can help this offense?
It's amazing. He's a great running back. It's a privilege, getting back there with him. He teaches me a lot of things. I teach him a lot of things. We make each other better every week.
Peanut, why is this offense in the playoffs harder to stop with you on the offensive side of the football?
Because you can't lock in on one player.
Yeah, no doubt, because you have Banks, Josiah. Let me ask you this. Shout out some of your teammates, defensively and offensively. Who are the guys that help you, not only during the week, but also on Friday nights that make you a better player?
We got Adrian Monroe, number 17. We got Zion Radford, Zion Dawkins, Chance and K. Will, Jarante Kimbrough, Kelton Smith. Then on offense, we got Banks Boughton. We got Quintus Huns. We got Brady. We got a whole line. We got a lot of weapons, man.
Yeah, certainly. So now, Peanut, you've got a tough one again on Friday. It only gets more and more challenging. What do you know about Northwestern? You guys, no stranger to Northwestern, played them last year in the postseason. What do you know about this year's Northwestern team?
You just got to stop the pass.
Is that what they like to do?
Yes, sir.
And what's your role in that when it comes to stopping the pass?
My role is just execute and do my part and just be there.
Well, Peanut, best of luck to you Friday. Congratulations on being the Fan Upstate Player of the Week, and we hope to talk to you again real soon.
You're listening to the
Cole Bryson.
On the Fan Upstate.
Texter wants to know, Cole, why you didn't apologize to Peanut Bailey for picking Greenwood over Gaffney in your picks.
No comment. No comment. I don't know what you're talking about, Texter.
Did Alex pick up any steam on you?
Yeah, 4 games, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's the current standings?
I think he's behind 3. I think he's 3 games back. So
there's still a chance, Alex.
A little bit of traction there.
Now, we get into this time of the season, though, this time of the playoffs, these are fairly evenly matched teams
It's
now
tough.
at this point.
Yeah, it's tough to pick.
It's getting harder and harder to pick them. Hurricane Jeff asks, you don't necessarily have to answer the question, but what's going on with the other show? Haven't heard him on a while in the mornings. Well, Jeff, now that you text in and asked the question and I read it on the air, we can answer it only by saying that we don't get that kind of information. We don't really know exactly what happened. Yeah, we just work here. We're not the managers. But it was, according to them, a business decision to make that move. So
even though some people think it was our decision.
Yeah. Oh, we wanted this.
Yeah,
totally.
yeah.
Okay. Let's hear some audio from the biggest names or sometimes fools in the sports industry. Let's start with none bigger than Shane Beamer, the current, for now, head football coach at the University of South Carolina. He says, Cole, that the struggles that they've had this year are actually going to help them in the future.
Okay.
This is a sales job here.
Okay. And I know our guys do too. They hurt, and we're going through this right now, and I hurt for we're going to be stronger for it next season. I know that these guys that we have coming back that will remember this feeling, and I don't know why we're going through it. I don't know why we've had this heartbreak that we've had, but we will be better and stronger and hardened because of it as we go into next season. But I really, really hurt for these seniors that have given so much that there won't be postseason. I'm sad for our team. That's one thing we talked about on Sunday is it's such a great group of guys. And that's why I hurt so much for them, Phil. Like they're such great kids.
Hey, those hardened feelings and about $40 more million in NIL could buy you 10 wins.
Yeah, you hate it, and every South Carolina fan does, Shane. But the reality is the job just didn't get done this year, and that falls on one person. Yeah, well, that multiple, but ultimately falls on one, right?
Mike Furry?
Nope.
Here's one more from Shane Beamer saying that at halftime, they didn't go into the locker room feeling like they had this game locked up. Here's Shane Beamer on that.
Nobody came into the locker room at halftime celebrating, thinking the game was over, thinking that we could just go out there and coast in the second half. We talked about it at halftime. The scoreboard is irrelevant. Our whole mentality today was coming in here and dominating. And when you're dominating, you don't, look at the scoreboard. When you're trying to dominate something, you just keep going. And that's what we talked about.
Well, there was certainly a dominant team in the second half of that game. It just wasn't you, Shane.
Yeah. And you know what? I don't know if you heard Mike Elko, but he was asked about the halftime, like what he said, right? And there's a lot to be said about the largest comeback in school history happening on Saturday. There's also a lot to be said about being on the flip side of that in terms of, I was the coach that allowed. Real quick, before we move off of South Carolina, do you have any more Gamecock audio?
I've got one from Scott Van Pelt.
I've got Lenora Sellers and Mike Elko. Here's Lenora's post game, by the way.
Finish of the season, and when the times come to make those decisions, like this is gonna be there, but everybody got decisions to make. But I'm planning on being here because I'm here right now.
One more time on that. The question was asked something about what is next for him, right? And he wasn't really clear. But what do you make of this?
Finish of the season, and when the times come to make those decisions, like this is gonna be there, but everybody got decisions to make. But I'm planning on being here because I'm here right now. So
does that encourage you?
When I come to the end of the season, I'll make that decision because everybody has decisions to make, but I plan on being here because I'm here right now.
Does that sound like
what?
Does that sound like somebody who's
committed
to coming back?
No. It says I'm going to make that decision in the future. I haven't made it yet, and I'll be thinking about it.
It doesn't sound like it. Also, Mike Elko, let me see here. Mike Elko was asked postgame about what he said, what his message was, Diesel, down 30-3 at halftime. Here's what Mike Elko said postgame.
That's the question everybody's going to ask.
What did you say at halftime?
Yeah, honestly, not much. Like all we talked about was, we have an identity of who we are. If we play to our identity, we're a good football team. If we start thinking that's not who we are, if we start thinking we're something else, if we start trying to play a different way, that's not us. That's not who we are. And we're a blue collar team. We're a physical team. We're a team that has to control the line of scrimmage. We're a team that has to play with a lot of energy. And we just weren't doing any of those things in the first half. And I think the vibes were good. All things considered, the vibes were good. The kids believed we were going to come out and win that game in the second half. Whether they really did or not, that was the energy in the locker room. And then obviously, we made some plays early in the second half to get the momentum going, to get the crowd going. And from that point, it just kind of spiraled in our favor.
It did spiral. I guess I would say, Diesel, that's the best word I've heard to describe it. It just spiraled in a huge way.
I just looked this up, Cole, because I was curious. How many times has A&M needed a big-time second half to get a win?
Mm-hmm.
And without going over the whole season, just kind of going backwards, game by game by game, Texas A&M has scored 24 or more points in the second half of the last 4 straight games.
Score.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying, right?
Against Arkansas, they put up 24 in the second half. Against LSU, they put up 35 in the second half. Against Missouri, they put up 28. And against South Carolina, they put up 28. That is a second half team.
Yeah, and they're no stranger to lighting it up, coming out hot. So I think definitely that's something to consider. But my gosh, Diesel, it doesn't matter. Like, kick a field goal. You kick a field goal Saturday, you probably still win the game, but you couldn't even kick a field goal.
Let's listen to Scott Van Pelt, Cole. A lot of people are bagging on Shane Beamer for that display. That's the only word I can use to describe it for now.
Yeah.
Walking out of the tunnel towards the locker room, going into halftime. He's walking, he's doing the pumping the crowd thing up. And a lot of people are, I think, wrongfully saying, well, Shane was showboating in front of the A&M fans. That wasn't the case. That was where the South Carolina fans were sitting. But here's Scott Van Pelt on that display.
South Carolina played as good a first half as you can play, like perfect half. And I saw on social media, like, people giving Beamer walking off the field for fire, going nuts. What's he supposed to do? Act like you've been there before? You're 3-6. You're playing a number 3 unbeaten on the road, and you're whipping their ass. I have zero issue with that man walking off the field and imploring his group. Oh. That's a great half, and I had no issue with that.
I didn't either.
I didn't either.
Everybody's all over for I guess hindsight, you can say, well, you shouldn't have behaved that way. You should have been focused. But who cares?
That's not the reason they lost the game. They lost the game because they freaking couldn't tackle and couldn't score.
They also didn't have Texas A&M making a tremendous cavalcade of mistakes in the second half.
Mistakes help, man. Mistakes help. Yeah. It can hurt you as well. But my goodness, it's just when people lose, when their teams lose, Diesel, they will find anything. I don't like the way Shane Beamer's shoe was tied Saturday. You know what I mean? I mean, just find anything to get upset about.
Cole, did you were you happen to be watching the Pittsburgh versus Cincinnati game last night? Things got a little off the rails when Jamar Chase and Jalen Ramsey kind of got in each other's faces. And well, here's the audio from the booth.
Number 5.
Well, that is a first down.
Number 5 has been disqualified for throwing a punt.
He just got it before. He just got. Yeah, so he's kicked out. They said he threw a punt. So there's 2 penalties which would be kicked out for, but now they're saying. So now they're throwing a punt. So he's second defensive back. Wow, that's. All right, Gene, you're watching it all unfold with us.
Correction, 15 yards out of first down.
So right here. Go ahead, Gene.
Yeah, sorry, Trent. I heard Bill Vinovich just say correction, 15-yard first down. I don't know if he is saying now that he believes that's an ejection or not. I'm not sure.
No, he did.
He kind of clarified that.
He said ejection because of a punch thrown.
And he's not off the field. Yeah. An assistant coach has now got him.
So players were spitting at each other. Other players were throwing punches at each other. It got out of hand.
You spit and you sit. He's now been suspended for 1 game. Let me just say, Diesel, I am so envious of Kevin Harlan. The guy is just Mr. Do-It-All. He was on that call. You just heard his voice.
Yeah.
He was on that call. The night before, he was on the call in the game between the Spurs and the Warriors where Wembanyama just dunked on Draymond, an absolute chaos moment. I mean, it was one of the greatest dunks I've ever seen in my life, all kidding aside, and it couldn't have happened to a better person than Draymond Green. But like Kevin Harlan Saturday nights, in Golden State Spurs game, calling big plays where Wembanyama dunks on Draymond Green. The next night he's, calling Jamar Chase spitting on. I mean, I'm envious of that guy.
We always compare LeBron to Jordan or Kobe to Jordan or whoever it may be. Nobody's comparing Dennis Rodman to Draymond Green. If you want to talk about that's a comparison right there.
Both
the biggest
idiots
and biggest heels. I mean, Metta World Peace is in that mix as well. Let's hear from Cam Hayward, Pittsburgh Steeler, on this whole Jamar Chase situation.
I got penalized, but if you want to spit on a guy, you don't belong in the game. And
agreed.
Hopefully the NFL handles it because we all try to calm Jalen down, but if a man spits on you, that's a different reaction than you should ever have to deal with him again.
Right.
Yeah, that's a Superfly TNT, Guns of the Navarone kind of moment. You're spitting on me.
I agree with him 100%. We've talked about that.
From Liam Cohen, the head football coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, who have just had a dominant win over the Chargers. Sorry, Matt
came
Kraft.
out from the beginning, executed, just it really in all three phases, obviously as a team, but offensively, I just thought, it started with being able to run the ball efficiently and effectively. I thought Trevor was playing really well, especially, just spitting the ball accurately, especially going through a lot of progressions, getting to the number 2 or 3 or 4 read in the progression a few times. We were good in the red zone, solid on third down, didn't have all those self-inflicted wounds, that we have kind of been hurt by in weeks past. I thought the guys just executed and played their tails off.
Just a blowout.
Let me tell you this. I had a teaser yesterday, and I had the Chargers, I think, laying like 2 or 3 points. That was the biggest. And we'll get more into what happened in the NFL tomorrow on tomorrow's show, but that was the biggest surprise. Going into that game, I thought Jacksonville's the most inconsistent team in the NFL. There's no way they'll beat them. Turns out the Chargers, I believe, might be the most inconsistent team. That was embarrassing, Diesel. They just got their butt whooped by Trevor Lawrence yesterday.
Let's hear from Shedeur Sanders, who had his NFL debut. Didn't exactly go the way that he wanted it to go, 4 for 16, and just a pretty bad look. But he's out there on the field. How did he feel about it?
Yeah, when I got out there, I definitely felt them. And, I'm truly thankful for it. And I'm just thankful that I'm out here. I'm thankful for the opportunity, thankful for seeing all them 12 jerseys out there. And it was a great feeling for that. But the feeling of losing, that ain't nothing we're going to get comfortable with. Like, on my
You're
way.
in Cleveland, dog.
I mean, cut out all of the, I was so happy to see my jersey all over the stands. And just get to the part about the team, man. Like, why is it impossible to drill into Shedeur Sanders' mind? Stop making this about you. Make it about the team.
He said, can you play the very first part of that audio? I want to listen to one more thing he said right there.
Yeah, when I got out there, I definitely felt them. And, I'm truly thankful for it. And I'm just thankful that I'm out here.
Right there.
I'm
just thankful that I'm out here. Well, I'm sure after that performance, you are thankful that you're still out there and not cut, right? Because you had an opportunity to be – that was bad. I'm just waiting for all the Shedeur Sanders apologists, their excuses. Well, guys, he's playing for the Browns. They're not any good anyways. There's always an excuse.
Let's hear from Dave Canales on what it means to only be a half game behind the Buccaneers for the lead in the NFC South.
Wow.
What Freaky Friday is it?
Say that again.
Half a game back from the Bucs for the lead in the division. This team, here's Dave Canales.
That's exactly the vision and the dream that I hope for this group, that if we play good complementary football for a long time, we'll put ourselves in position for the finish. And we're in that position right now. We got a lot of work and a bunch of great teams. And, for us, it's just the focus is 1 week at a time. And we're going to regroup. We're going to meet tomorrow, and then we're going to play the Niners on Monday night. But the focus has to be 1-0, but it's the hard work, that it's the trust, it's the commitment that puts you in the position to have this opportunity.
Yeah, the 49ers, real good team this year. It's going to be tough.
Do you
to
have
get
any
on the
more
road.
Panther, or are you about to move on from Panther?
I've already played the one Dave Canales. I do have the audio of the game-winning field goal.
Okay, I've got his victory speech in the locker room.
Oh, okay. Here's what it sounded like when the Panthers got it done in Atlanta.
From 28, and Carolina has won.
How about that?
Big time. Big
OT
time.
win on the road.
No doubt. I like it. Here's what he said post-game.
Bryce Young. Okay. 31 to 45. 448. 3 touchdowns. 123.2 rating. 448 is a team record. Let's go.
A lot of excitement, and all kidding aside, man, like if you're a Panther fan, you love to see that. Like it gives you hope. It gives you a little bit of, a promise for maybe what could be, as long as you just don't continue to see inconsistencies and the plateaus and the valley. No more valleys. Plateaus, I think, are fine, Diesel, but no more valleys.
Let's last one here for you, Cole. We'll have to parse words on what exactly Lane Kiffin is saying here. He told his Ole Miss team to remember and enjoy the good old days.
For 2 weeks. As you get older, everybody always says the good old days. Like, man, remember in the good old days when we were in high school and everybody talks about how good they were. And I said, hey, guys, I think we're in the good old days right now. Wow. So I think we're in them. I think for our fans, for our players, it's like this utopia of what's going on. So enjoy it, because these runs don't happen very often anywhere. So it's really cool.
Enjoy it, because I'm about to take the job at LSU.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Did he say that we're in the good old days, meaning like
they're about to end?
I don't know. I don't know. There's a country song. It's "Tell Me About the Good Old Days," and maybe I hope that's not what it means there. We'll see though.
I would love to see Lane stay there, continue to build up NIL money, and sort of take down some of the big dogs and make Ole Miss a big dog in the SEC.
I'd like to. Hey, one more. How about Dabo?
And you love this group. This group, it seems like this is a special group. Why?
Because the tougher it's gotten, the closer they've become, the stronger they've gotten, and the more they've dug in. And that's not normal. Not in today's world. That's not normal. Usually when you have some adversity, you divide. People are looking for the sideline or the training room, but not these Tigers, not these seniors. That's the freaking heart of a champion right there. The record don't define you. How you respond is what defines you in everything, in life, in football, and everything. And hey, our record ain't what we want it to be, but we got a hell of a great group of young people right there that just fought their butts off, gave every ounce of everything they had. A lot of people quit on them. There ain't no quitting that bunch, and there ain't no quitting me. Go Tigers.
Whoa, walked off the set, Diesel.
Did we just get a new Daboism?
Oh, he's fired up after that win on Friday over Louisville. We'll hear from him tomorrow as he'll speak to the media tomorrow. But speaking of Clemson, speaking of Dabo, let's get into it with Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com. What exactly was it that put the Tigers over the edge on Friday night against the Cardinals? Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com. Next.
fan upstate.
Well, it's time to talk to Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com. He joins us every single Monday at this very time to talk all things Clemson, all things New England Patriots. Not really, but he does have his Patriots beanie on. But Grayson, we're not talking Clemson to lead the interview, the segment today. We're not talking Patriots. Let's get your thoughts on James Franklin making his way to the ACC. Breaking news in the very last segment that Virginia Tech is finalizing a deal with James Franklin for him to become their next head football coach. Your reaction to that?
I'd like to take it from two angles, if y'all don't mind. I'd love to talk about the Clemson angle of all this, but just for Virginia Tech alone, what a hire. I think it's the one that made the most sense for them. And you got someone like Franklin at Penn State, where I think it had run its course in Happy Valley. But overall, you look at a guy that can win 10 games consistently. He's going to be in a much easier conference now, in theory. And the expectation at Virginia Tech is certainly not going to be what it was at Penn State. He's not going to have to be asked to come in and win a national title immediately. So Virginia Tech, he's one that can recruit at an elite level. And so for a Clemson perspective, not only do they get to face Franklin in his debut year next fall at Death Valley, I think the competition back to the top just got a whole lot more difficult.
Grayson, we watched the SEC undergo its coaching overhaul, was that 6 years ago, where they were just constantly spending a ton of money hiring young, hot, up-and-coming coaches. I think the ACC in football should kind of adopt a little bit of that, except for instead of taking the risk on the younger guys, grab those guys that the really overly twitchy SEC and Big Ten programs are casting off. Brian Kelly won over 70% of his games at LSU. And I know there's not another big time opening in the ACC right now, but it would certainly make a lot of sense to see Brian Kelly in, a northern half of the ACC kind of program. I think it would really, really work. I mean, I don't know if anybody can come down from on high in the ACC and say, hey, go after those guys, hire those guys, because they're free to do whatever they want. But it seems like a strategy